Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Garrett Smith, the nutrition detective around these here YouTube parts. And today we've got episode 143 of the Love Your Liver live stream. For those of you who haven't already, make sure to subscribe and like the video and do all that stuff. If you want to be in the live chat, you got to subscribe. And that's where I do take questions later on in the subscriber Q&A. So for those of you who watch this and you want more information, just know all the links are down in the information below, all our social media links and the store and all that fun stuff. And let's get right into it. So yeah, this is, April 23rd, 2024, the 142 shows in a row. What's going to be the next one? 56, 56, 56. That'll be 52 3 years in a row. That'll be 156. When we hit that, that'll be 3 years in a row without missing a week. One coming up, maybe not on the same day, because I'm leaving town to go do a podcast with Alex Zek, and I'm going to be doing a convention up in Washington, and that's going to be a lot of traveling, and I may not be home in between. So keep an eye out for that one. It may change the day just for that week. So anyway, let's get right into it. We got several awesome testimonials recently inside the Love Your Liver program. People post them. Now, I never, just due to legalities and all that stuff, all testimonials are anonymous. Just so you know, if you ever accuse me of making a fake testimonial, I will immediately block you, because everybody who knows me knows I would never do that. But if you go into the Love Your Liver program and you join, you could see these testimonials. But for the public's consumption, I never use names or identifying information if I can avoid it. So let's get into it now. Let me go. Here we go. Okay. First testimonial. This person is a healthcare practitioner. They've made lots of progress on the program. They are a very strong advocate of this on Twitter. If they choose to identify themselves in the comments or in the chat, they can do so. But otherwise, I've done updates from this person before. So we have 2-year update. I just revisited my master symptom list and reread my 1-year update, and I have made some further health improvements over the last year. Just a couple challenges remain, but pumped about my progress and can't wait to get 5 years of this under my belt. So he's 2 years deep. Now I want to say, before I go into this massive symptom list of stuff that has gone away, stuff that's better, and stuff that hasn't changed yet. None of these, okay, so people always ask me, do you have a protocol for this issue? No. There might be certain things, like if you're more tired, okay, you want to pay attention to your potassium intake. That's really important for fatigue. And you may want to get on that nicotinic acid, the flush niacin that we talked about in the program. And those are things that are part of the program, but they've been noticed to help with that issue. So when I do my private consultations with people, I look at their issues and I'll tell them, these are areas of the program that you don't want to mess. You can look at it in a positive way of you want to do these really well, or you don't want to mess these up, because these are the things that we've seen are most connected to your issues. That doesn't mean it's a protocol. Okay, and this person has been doing the Love Your Liver program, which is a do-it-yourself program, folks. Don't think that if you buy membership to the Love Your Liver program that you get access to me. I want to make sure you don't make that mistake. It is a do-it-yourself program. That's why it's so affordable at $99 a year and can save you all this money on all these other practitioners if you do it yourself. Isn't that how these things work? Right? You do it yourself. It's always cheaper. $99 a year, you're getting my life's work in there that I'm making time in my schedule to revise it and expand it. I'm just not there when I have the open time yet. So anyway, so what I'm getting at is this whole list of things that we're about to go through. He did this himself, following the program. There was no protocol for the individual issues. Okay? So if you come and you say, have you ever worked with this? Maybe, maybe not. I don't have to have worked with it because we do the same thing. Now, if you work with Nathan or I, or soon Kelsey and Hope, we're going to look at your labs. blood and hair tests, and we're going to give you guidance on how to supplement, how deficient you are, suggestions on what you're going to shoot for. And that is the customization you get of the things that are generally in the program, especially regarding zinc and selenium and molybdenum. But that's not it's definitely not a protocol, because we're going to say, here's how deficient you are, and here's our suggestions to test out to figure out what doses of these is the best for you. Because for anybody to say that everybody should take the same dose of a mineral, and you have a 90-something pound woman and a 280-pound man, and you think the same things are going to work for the two of them, that is delusion at its finest. Some people are super sensitive and they can hardly take anything. Some people are like what I call sledgehammer people, and they're really deficient. You got to hit them really hard with stuff. How do you know that? Well, testing, and then watching your reactions, and then running that by, like, let's say me or Nathan or Kelsey or Hope, who have experience watching people's reactions to these things, and we can help guide them to go up or down or whatever they need to do. So let's go through these symptoms now that you understand that. Long gone symptoms: irritable bowel syndrome, sacroiliitis. So this is inflammation of the sacroiliac joint. He put AS. I'm assuming it's ankylosing spondylitis, which is an excessive calcification in the body. Random stiff joints. Well, so do you see how these all go together? Especially these. These are all very much calcification pain. I have been over here before. Sacroiliitis is a classic symptom of Accutane toxicity, which is vitamin A. Accutane is 13-cis-retinoic acid. 13-cis-retinoic acid is what you turn some of the vitamin A you eat into. It is the exact same chemical compound. Don't fool yourself, and don't listen to internet gurus who say that these things are different if it's natural or not, because scientists, if they analyze it, they find 13-cis-retinoic acid in the urine and in the blood of people who are not taking Accutane. Please explain how it got there. And then the scientists use the same analysis to look for synthetic 13-cis-retinoic acid in the system and natural 13-cis-retinoic acid in the system. So if the scientists can't tell the difference, there is no difference. Irritable bowel syndrome. This is toxic bile in your guts, irritating the heck out of them. You want to know what excess vitamin A and vitamin D supplements and excess copper will do? It will cause you to calcify. That's what these are. So these are gone. Wow. Okay, so let's keep going. But again, do I have a protocol for ankylosing spondylitis? No. Do I have a protocol for irritable bowel syndrome? No. Do I have a protocol for sacroiliitis? No. It's the same general approach. It's not just vitamin A. If you've seen me other places and you think all I do is vitamin A toxicity, you are quite wrong. And you're missing out if you think that we're that simplistic. So we have mostly gone, recently gone. I don't have to see a chiropractor for problems all the time, most commonly having to do with the right rib cage. What's under the right rib cage? Just checking. Oh, the liver. And this person, I am a chiropractor, but at some point I realized I had become a chronic chiropractic patient myself. Not anymore. I still get adjusted once a month or so for true maintenance care. Imagine how much, let's say you're going to your chiropractor once a week. Maybe there's people out there going 2 or 3 times a week. What are they, if stuff is coming back, like how many of you, I've done this, you go to the chiropractor, they adjust you, and maybe it feels better for like an hour or 3 or 4, and then it comes back. What do you think put you back in that position? Could it be the biochemical imbalances, the toxicities and the deficiencies? Bones don't move on their own. So if your bones are constantly moving out of alignment, it's something causing the muscles to pull them. Bones don't move. Okay. So think of how much money he's saving by not having to go to the chiropractor every time. How many times do you go to the chiropractor and they say your SI joint's out? Oh, wait. Oh, liver. Okay. Brittle nails, disorganized cuticles, dry eyes, dry and peeling skin on some toes and on thumbs, right shoulder / rib cage tension and pain. So it may have been higher rib cage, but we have a lot of people with liver pain or gallbladder pain that goes away very quickly. Transient vertigo. This means like very short-lived. It comes and goes with head movements like extension. Oh, wait, this was a little wrong here. Let me fix this. There we go. So intermittent, this means that he's doing better on occasion and worse on occasion. Oh, see, I want to put this, now I'm like, postprandial fatigue. That means after he eats, soon after he eats. He says it only happens when he goes to parties and eat normie food. Potassium helps. How many times you guys heard me say here, vitamin A toxicity, vitamin A blocks potassium channels so it doesn't get to where it's supposed to go. Copper toxicity depletes potassium. What was the other one? Oh, vitamin D supplements in the past. Oh gosh, things that people might have taken for their health, like vitamin D supplements causing calcification. And vitamin D also, I have a rat study showing, depletes potassium. It is very common that potassium will help if you get tired soon after you eat. Anxiety and insomnia, fairly rare. Well, just so you know, folks, in today's crazy world, even if you're doing pretty well health-wise, just let me tell you, stress can cause insomnia no matter how good your biochemistry is. So if this is much better and it's fairly rare now, not only does that mean his chemical stuff is getting better, well, I mean, it does mean his chemical stuff is getting better, but as anybody in healthcare who has like their own business, which I know this, I believe this person does, and has a family and has other issues, there's going to be stress. It may cause some anxiety. It may cause some insomnia. So this is good if it's rare. Brain fog and memory issues, rare or minimal. Frequent urination / nighttime frequency of urination, down from 2 to 3 times a night to most of the time just 1. Sensitive teeth are better. Oh, sorry, this was another one we didn't fix. Unchanged things. Disoriented vision, trouble focusing eyes after exertion or heat. We're going to come back to this. Those of you who are in the program understand what these are. They are what we call agitators. They increase bile dumping. Bile dumping is if you're still leaking bile, which all of us here who have health issues are, you dump more bile, you leak more bile, you see systemic symptoms in your weak areas, your weak links in the chain. Cold hands and feet, low free testosterone and high sex hormone binding globulin. Okay, these are things, they take a while. Not everything goes away right away. Anybody who thinks that this is, okay, 2 years in, look at all these symptoms that are better. Not a single protocol. What are we fixing? Toxicities and deficiencies. Does everything go away at the same rate? No. Does the thing that bothers you the most go away first? No, not necessarily. The things that you've had the longest, that are probably the thing you're most sick of, is probably going to go away last. That's just how it is. It's like peeling the layers of an onion. The first things that you had, if you think of that as like a toxicity layer, you add toxicity and deficiency layers, you build the onion, and then as we are detoxing, we are chopping down the onion layers. And so the very first problem you had that's been around the longest is going to be the last thing to go away. This is normal. This is how it works. Okay, now, as he says he says bad as ever, and I'm sure he's sick of these issues. But that doesn't mean that it's worse. Like it's bad as ever. Okay, so we haven't fixed these things yet. Am I scared of telling you how this really works? Like how many people out there would hide this part of the testimonial? I'm not going to hide it. I'm going to say that this is a process. And if you want to come here and think there's a magic pill, this is not a magic pill. Don't send me people who want a magic pill who aren't willing to put in years of work and undo all the nonsense that they've learned in health. Thinking that, oh, I need this herb for this symptom, and I need this medication for this symptom, and the pharma cartel is really out for my best interest. If those are the people you're talking to, I don't want them. Let them get worse. What you should do out there, if you're following this, is you get yourself better. Stop trying to convince everybody else to jump on the train with you. Get yourself better first. Ramon accusing people of hypochondriaism, whatever you want to call it. This is not going to go well here. I'm sure he had all of these things diagnosed, or it was quite obvious to him. Maybe he was really toxic from being a health nut, which is what we get a lot of people doing. So ED, erectile dysfunction. I want you to pay attention to this. Some good weeks here and there, but mostly pretty bad / sad lately. Okay. Note he had anxiety and insomnia. Notice how I said stress. This whole thing can't fix stress. For those of you guys out there dealing with ED, before I go into what helped, ED is massively connected to your mental state. The reason why so many men have problems dealing with it long term, and I'm not saying that this is this person's situation, but it very well could be. The reason why drugs work for a while, herbs work for a while, these other things work for a while, and then they go away, even supplements, is because the root of the problem is in thinking about it. If you've had ED, you build up mental issues around it, whether or not it could be chemical to start, but then you build up the mental issues. As I've said before, there's two parts to a problem. There's the biochemical part, and then there's the physical part, if you want to call it the nervous system learning part of it. So if you start getting an issue and you fix the biochemical part, you may still have to repair the mental part that came about possibly because of the chemical part causing you to be like, why is my body not working? You understand? So if your body's not functioning the way you want it to, even if it's totally chemical, then you build up a mental part around it, and you could fix the biochemical part, but the mental part may still be broken. And this will show up in supplements working for a while and then not working, medications working for a while and then not working. They've actually, there's groups out there that help with erectile dysfunction that say that notice that taking ED meds makes the problem worse over time, because then you get a crutch and you depend on the crutch and you're constantly just watching for the med to work. So again, if you have ED issues, men, if you have any sexual issues, the Mojo app, you can find it in the app stores, the Mojo app, I highly, highly suggest it. It deals with just about all the potential causes of your problems. I think it's $69 for 3 months. Best thing you'll probably ever do for yourself. Not just ED. Okay, so he said trying Clomid for a while, which is an estrogen receptor blocker. So this is pharmaceuticals. He's going pharmaceutical. This is how, if you want to say desperate the situation has gotten, this is how desperate the situation has gotten. If the mental stuff isn't dealt with, this may work for a while. The mental stuff always wins. Okay, so trying Clomid for a while, just started a week ago, so can't report if it's helping yet. Not above using a crutch if this is going to take another year or two to come along. Experiment. Now, before anybody hears this, I am not advocating this. I have seen people cause problems with excessive zinc. This person is not under my care. I do not deal with their tests. I am not guiding them personally. They are on the do-it-yourself program. So if you go out, can you mess yourself up? Do it yourself? Absolutely. You ever seen those Amazon reviews where you're like reading them and you're like, the person obviously just couldn't find the plug, or they couldn't even turn on the on switch, or they didn't put batteries in it, right? Isn't that the first thing the computer guys do? Is they're like, is it plugged in? And have you hit the reset button? Have you turned it on and off, right? They do these things because people make bad decisions. What I'm saying this for is if you decide to run out and do this, following a testimonial here, this is not my guidance, is what I'm saying. I have no responsibility in this situation in terms of guidance. So experimenting with more zinc lately, higher doses closer to 200 milligrams a day seem to make my nails stronger. I've never had any problems from taking zinc, and the one blood test I got a year ago was about middle of range. Let me explain here. Zinc toxicity in the research. When you look at the zinc toxicity case studies, the zinc excess, if you want to call it that, the lowest dose I found is about 100 milligrams a day for months and months. Okay, a lot of the doses are 220 milligrams a day. If you start getting up around 200 milligrams a day, I'm going to tell you that you're probably going to overshoot refilling your zinc and end up on the other side. I have never personally put anyone on 200 milligrams a day, and I see no need to. I also would not be giving mega doses based on one blood test a year ago. We at least test every 6 months, and we look at both hair and blood. I don't know what he's looking at. One blood test. We test hair and blood on both zinc and copper to show us as much detail as possible, because sometimes one will say one thing and another will say another thing. And if this is middle of the normal range, that doesn't mean much to me. So anyway, just so you know, not what I'm saying to do on zinc. Nicotinic acid, this is flush niacin, was making, I want you to pay attention to this. Nicotinic acid was making a huge difference in the beginning, and I believe he's talking about, well, I know he may be talking about other symptoms, but I know this person was talking about ED. But that faded and is back to as bad as it ever was. I had a similar effect from thiamine B1 at one point, but that also faded. Are you seeing the pattern that I just told you about? If this is regarding ED, among other things that help in the beginning and then fade are often antidotes for a deeper toxicity, and part of that toxicity may simply be mental stuff. If the mental stuff is not dealt with, the meds, the supplements, the vitamins, the herbs, they'll work for a while and it will fade. Your brain is more powerful than anything. I don't know if I told this story. I think I did. I was at my again, I'm going to remind you, I was at my high school reunion, my 30-year high school reunion, and there was a woman there. I forget what she had, but she had some bad condition. It might have been lupus. It might have been seborrhea. I forget what it was. But she said she went to a doctor, and the doctor just told her, like, look, you know what you need to do is just stop giving a crap. You care too much. You're stressing yourself out. And the woman said what she did, she didn't say she did anything else. Now, do I think she didn't do anything else? Probably not. But she said she just stopped caring about stuff. And her problems all went away, was what she said. Now, this is all hearsay. Can you stress yourself sick? I mean, that should be obvious. Can your mental issues overpower any meds? You ever seen those commercials on TV where they're like, oh, if you're already on an antidepressant, and it's breaking through, you can add this antidepressant. Do you see how your brain can break through the meds? It can break through the supplements. So it's not all about pills, but I don't do therapy. That's not my bag, baby. You want therapy? You want mental stuff? I can tell you where to go. I can tell you the things that have helped me, but you have to open the door and walk through that. If you have mental stuff going on, nothing other than you dealing with it will make it go away. Well, maybe hypnotherapy could help with it without you having to do too much, but you still have to admit there's a problem to have the hypnotherapy start working on it. Okay. Here we go. The vision problems after exertion are a bit concerning. Though I've had this for a long time and it's pretty stable, I don't really have a cause nailed down. Well, I'm going to expand on this. I don't know what the cause is. So he's theorizing here. I could have a pituitary adenoma pushing on my optic nerve, perhaps. I have had my prolactin levels tested before to see if I could have a prolactinoma, and they were always in range, though upper end of range. Years ago, when I was really toxic and actively taking vitamin D3 subs, also known as rat poison, I would get blind spots in the center of my vision, and it would be hard to read sometimes. Eye docs couldn't see anything on my eye, so referred me to some higher up neuro doc that I never saw, and the blind spots went away on their own. I'm assuming that partially went away when he was not taking vitamin D3 subs. I'll come back to that. Taking suggestions on the stuff at the end, but this is overall a very happy story unfolding, and I'm glad to still be hanging around here with all of you and getting healthier. He's referring to the Love Your Liver program. Now, one of the things, there was something else. Okay, so thiamine. What do I believe thiamine B1 does in the body? Some of you know. It binds to aldehydes and makes the aldehydes less toxic while it's bound to it. What does nicotinic acid help with? Nicotinic acid is, and it helps you make NAD, which is the energy to run ALDH, which is what your body uses to detox aldehydes. Okay, what causes eye problems, in my opinion? The biggest thing that causes eye problems of the vitamin A family, retinaldehyde. Did I tell you that exercise and sauna? He mentioned exercise and sauna. It's usually the worst when I work out and afterwards go into the sauna. Bile dumping, agitators. So he goes and layers one agitator on top of another one, dumps a bunch of bile. He's making a bunch of these things into aldehydes. He's seeing symptoms in his eyes, which is very much related to retinaldehyde. And we see temporary improvements from aldehyde things that are related to treating aldehydes. So there is something going on here. Maybe this person has a genetically slow ALDH. I'm not working with this person. I'm not testing this person, so I don't know what their zinc is, hair and blood. I don't know what their hair selenium is. I don't know what their hair molybdenum is. I don't know what their molybdenum symptom pattern is. I don't know anything about this to fix the other ALDH things that might be going on. Folate seems to also be related to ALDH. And folate's depleted by vitamin A. I have a whole video on this channel about it. Oh, there's one more thing. Wait, was it here? Where was it? No, that's the next one. Okay, so let's go into the next testimonial. So anyway, that's 2 years. No protocols. Not working with me. That person is a very good do-it-yourselfer. I mean, they may be doing some things that I don't agree with, but that's the do-it-yourself risk. I'm pretty sure I said in my zinc article, don't go over 100 milligrams. So if people go and do this, sometimes it works. Once in a while, somebody nails something and they get down, they lower it when they start noticing issues. Sometimes there's problems and then they don't blame the thing that I said was the issue. So anyway, like I said, this person's having great results on the do-it-yourself program. Let's go second testimonial. First, I want to say I'm so grateful I found this program and the community. After years of health issues, I'm finally on the right track with VA. This is vitamin A, copper, and sulfur issues. I realized I had an issue with sulfur after reading some posts and listening to live streams, so I stopped using MSM, which is methyl sulfonyl methane, Epsom salts, which are magnesium sulfate, and N-acetylcysteine, the alternative community's wonder sulfur compound. Do you know that the pharmaceutical companies first made NAC? And the acetyl group is not doing you any favors. If you want to take NAC and you want to take a sulfur-containing amino acid, just take cysteine. If you're going to do it, I'm not saying to do it, but if you're going to take NAC, you might as well just take cysteine. It's a lot cheaper. Then when you open that bottle of cysteine, you're going to be like, why does this thing smell like sulfur so much? So, for those of you who are big thiamine junkies and you think TTFD from a UK doctor who doesn't believe in vitamin A toxicity is going to be your savior, it's got disulfides in it. It's got 2 sulfurs. I noticed having pain in the sides of my legs from TTFD. This is the allithiamine, the disulfide thiamine, but couldn't figure it out until I came across a thread where Dr. Smith mentioned the damage to his leg muscle from sulfur. I have talked about this a bunch. Stopped the TTFD and paused on the beans. I was having half a cup 2 times a day. Beans are likely not a sulfur issue. Beans are an excess soluble. For this person, might be an excess soluble fiber causing too much bile dumping, causing too much bile leaking. Okay. My brain fog improved within a few days, but then that bottleneck in her detox opened wide and vitamin A detox has sped up. Yellow bowel movements and burning booty. Your bile is so toxic, it's burning you. This is for everybody out there. I'm not saying just this person. As you take out the toxins, okay, so what about sulfur? She took out these sulfur things. What does sulfur do? Sulfur slows down ALDH. If you slow down ALDH, you are slowing down bile production. So if you take out toxins that are slowing down ALDH, so remember, toxins have to go through ALDH or toxins slow down ALDH. Sulfur slows down ALDH. This is easy in the research. I've shown it before. And what I've seen connecting things in the research is that if you slow down ALDH, you slow down bile production. So as this woman took out sulfur compounds, supplements of sulfur, and she stopped doing something that may have been causing her to dump bile excessively, or just she may not have been getting along with soluble fiber. This happens. There are very misguided people out on the internet blaming their problems on copper when all they were doing was the wrong type of soluble fiber for themselves and their gut didn't like it. They're blaming the wrong problem, which means they're not going to get better. But this person watched, and they started dumping faster, as evidenced by the color of their bowel movements, which is both a color of bile and a color of vitamin A, and the symptoms of their bowel movements, as in irritating them. Remember, vitamin A, retinoic acid, is a chemical peel. It burns off layers of cells on your face. That's why they use it as a chemical peel. It's called a yellow peel. That's just one thing in bile that could eat holes in you. So, major pockets of gas in my belly have slowed my digestion even more. Doing a coffee enema wasn't as smooth a process as usual. I've increased my molybdenum, critical factor in ALDH and sulfur metabolism, and my brain feels like normal and the lights turned on again. I'm taking extra B12 with folinic acid and potassium, so overall improving and feeling human again. My ankles and feet are cracking/popping a lot, though. This is toxic bile leaking into the system, increasing calcium. For this person, I would be definitely increasing topical magnesium and then making sure that you're trying to slow down the excess bile dumping. Maybe a foot soak, maybe a magnesium foot soak. If you haven't seen my topical magnesium live stream, you might want to go watch that for anybody out there. The joint and foot pain are pretty much gone, so it seems like trapped sulfur pockets causing the pops. Anyone have insights or experience with this? So the pain is gone. We're left with some cracking. Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. She has a note here. I replaced TTFD, which is the allithiamine, the sulfur thiamine, with thiamine HCl. Thiamine HCl has 1 sulfur in it. TTFD has 2 sulfurs in it. And my low B1 symptoms improved within a few days, including the pain in my legs. I also replaced my selenium with selenium glycinate. So selenomethionine. Methionine is a sulfur-containing amino acid. Selenium glycinate is not a sulfur-containing amino acid. So over time, I am probably going to be moving towards selenium glycinate as my main selenium. Okay. Testimonial number 3. Oh, so Joe, if you have the picture, let me... Yeah, there it is. Or wait, well, let me just get back to the window. There we go. Okay. So, yeah, the teeth picture, Joe. So here we go. Had to share because this is so cool. The picture on the left was October 2022. Do we have it up yet? Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. So it was October 2022, and my son was 7 years old. The picture on the right is today, and my son is now 8. His teeth have improved immensely over the past year and a half. Other than the program, I had him doing a night guard that Dr. Smith recommended, but he did not keep up with it and probably only used it for about a month or 2. Other than that, this has to be the program. He's also not mouth breathing anymore, which has helped with his concentration at school, and no ear infections, which he used to have all the time. He has my husband's teeth, and my husband had braces, so if this keeps up, he may not have to. Do I have teeth protocols? No. Why would somebody be mouth breathing? Probably because they're full of snot, which is one of the ways you detox. So if you stop putting the poisons in, you don't make as much snot. So you can breathe easier. People have noted that over the years, like, my face shape has changed. Do you think that could happen? That happens even faster in children. Children are still forming their full-size bones, right? So you fix things in children and they change quick, a year. Okay? So that's the testimonials for today. Now, boy, that took an hour. So now we're going to get into, actually, let me do something. Let me do, actually, wait. Let me do, I'll do this. So, Joe, show this tab first, please. I'm going to put this in the chat. Okay. We're going to go over Anthony Mawson today. Genius. Hold on, I haven't even had my flesh niacin yet. Start the timer, right? It's like my clock says 10:53. We'll see how long the flush takes to settle in. Okay. Oh, and Joe, I'm just going to read that little quote that you put in the Telegram to me. Regarding vitamin A in your teeth, it's bad for your teeth. But Joe was saying, well, I think we're going to do a teeth episode, a dental episode soon enough. We'll go over like toxic bile theory and dental stuff. But Joe said, I also saw a dentist video of drilling open a tooth for a filling. There was tons of yellow stuff inside the tooth. This was his judgment. He said it looks like the teeth were dissolving from the inside due to retinol or retinoic acid or any of the various vitamin A forms. Making sure I don't have any charcoal on my face. Okay. So if you want to see, so what I did was I just wanted to show you a search here for Mawson's papers on PubMed. What you can do if you ever want to search for an author on PubMed, and remember, PubMed is just like a library of studies. They're not all done by the NIH. If you want to find studies on the internet, if you wanted to find a rare book and you didn't want to buy it, you'd go to like the biggest library you could, right? The biggest library of studies is PubMed. This means absolutely nothing about who published the study. I don't know how like right-wing conspiracy theorists started talking about PubMed as like NIH funded studies, and I don't believe that. And why are you going there? Like, serious, guys, come on. Don't let the Q infect your brain too much. Come on, serious. I've based all my work by searching through PubMed. So obviously, if it was mainstream, I wouldn't be able to do all this now, would I? Okay. Got a little eyelash issue. So what I did, if you ever want to search for an author, this is the first paper we're going to go over. I'll come back to this. So what you do, if you want to search for an author, you find their name and you click on it. And then it will filter out all the times when Anthony Mawson, R Mawson, showed up as, there it is, right there. There it is. Okay, so that's how you can search for an author. So if you want to look for Anthony Mawson, you can. Okay, now let's go back. There we go. So why are we talking about Anthony Mawson? So after I discovered, Grant Genereux's work, the brilliance of that gentleman, good friend of mine now, He actually just sent me a song the other day, an AI generated song. I think it was about vitamin A. I got to watch it today. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. But anyway, so through Grant Generoux's work and talking to Grant, he starts mentioning Anthony Mawson, and I start getting into Anthony Mawson's work. Oh, I can feel the flesh starting now. Anthony Mawson, I believe, from what Grant told me, I think Anthony Mawson's son died of brain cancer, possibly glioma, which he did a paper on. And so Anthony started, Mawson, I'm just going to call him Mawson. So Mawson went into what the potential cause was, and he connected it to vitamin A, and he wrote tons of papers. I think he had like 10 papers he hasn't published. Okay. So he's the one who connected it. He said, all these symptoms of all these diseases look exactly like what we know is vitamin A toxicity induced by things like all trans retinoic acid, which is all normally in the studies, they call it just retinoic acid, but it's the same thing as retin-A or tretinoin. That's where he did most of his stuff. There's a thing called retinoic acid syndrome, which is what people typically with, I think it's leukemia or lymphoma, when they give it to them as chemotherapy, they get a very distinct pattern of symptoms. So you know when somebody has too much retinoic acid, they used to call it retinoic acid syndrome, but in their true gaslighting form, they changed the name to differentiation syndrome. Which is funny because what they use retinoic acid for in cell studies to immediately poison the cells is they use retinoic acid to don't have to say retinoic acid syndrome, because then people are going to start going, wait, isn't that vitamin A? Oh, weird. So let's start going through the papers. I'm going from most recent to the oldest. When we talk liver damage, and when we go in these papers over when he talks about the liver spilling vitamin A and retinoic acid and other retinoids into the blood, he's talking about cholestasis, which is toxic bile theory. He talks about vitamin A pretty much exclusively. That's all. We talk about bile, we talk about vitamin A, we talk about copper. Am I still on? Let me, hold on. Okay, I'm back. Okay. We're back. Could you hear me through that? No, you couldn't hear me. Okay, so let me back up a little bit. Okay, so when you're watching these, or when you're listening to me talk about these, and you see Anthony Mawson talk about liver damage or liver cells leaking retinoids or all that stuff, he doesn't talk about bile so much, or cholestasis, toxic bile leaking into the system, or cholestasis. We're talking about, no, we're still on it, Pierre. That's what's still up. So cholestasis, toxic leaky bile. If you need to see my intro videos, that's episodes 53 and 71. That's the basis of toxic bile theory. So Anthony Mawson's work laid the foundation of toxic bile theory for me to build on. There's a lot more toxic things in bile than there are it's not just vitamin A. The bile itself is toxic. The copper in it's toxic. The manganese is in it's toxic. All the fat-soluble toxins that everybody's worried about, the forever chemicals and the DDT and all that stuff, it's all stored in your liver, and it comes out. So, hold on. Let me stop sharing this one. Let me go share it again. Oh wait, I gotta share again. Sorry. Let me go share it again. Maybe we lost the share. This one. Okay. So this is Anthony Mawson's most recent paper, I believe. This is, where's the year? 2021. I believe he has since retired. He's something like 94. And what you'll see in these papers is, at the point, Anthony Mawson is still kind of straddling the line of, he knows if he says vitamin A is not a vitamin, nobody's going to publish his papers. So he still hedges his bets. Back in his early papers, he definitely still thought vitamin A was a vitamin, and you had to get some of it, but you didn't want to get too much. So let's just go into this. So he calls it a hypothesis, which it is. That's why we call it toxic bile theory. SARS-2. Now remember, virus theory, garbage. The COOF has a marked tropism. That means it likes the bile ducts. It damages the bile ducts and liver cells and can lead to liver decompensation or the liver slowing down. Do I ever talk about toxins slowing the liver down? Cirrhosis, where your liver is turning into a raisin, basically, and sepsis. Wait, didn't we do a whole show on anaphylaxis and sepsis being bile leaking into the system? Wow, I can feel the flush. How's it looking? The pathogenesis of liver damage and its association with damage to the lung, heart, and brain as the other protein manifestations of COVID-19 disease are not fully understood. That's because nobody talks about bile. People are just like, this virus that has no parts to move around, it has no really like moving pieces, it just magically makes more of itself, and then it goes and it causes damage everywhere. No, it's toxic bile that causes the problem. In particular, tissue damage from thinning and leaky blood vessels, or leaky gut, or leaky bile ducts, or leaky liver cells, or absorbing the bile through your stomach, appears to result from an inflammatory response to the virus rather than the virus itself. None of this matters. Whatever triggered the bile dump is what triggered the bile dump. I've been over this before. I've already marked this before. Review of the literature reveals that COOF disease closely resembles an endogenous, from within the body, created within the body, form of hypervitaminosis A. We propose that SARS-CoV-2 virus-induced liver damage, let's change that to bile-induced liver damage, causes retinoic acid and stored retinol esters, retinol palmitate, things like that, to be released into the circulation in toxic concentrations, unbound to protein. He's talking about retinol binding protein, which protects you from vitamin A, with resulting damage to organs, including the lungs, heart, blood vessels, and skin. Several lines of evidence support this model of disease causation. So he's mainly focusing on the vitamin A part of it. He talks about the liver damage, but liver, just so you know, liver injury in the research is cholestasis. It's leaking toxic bile. How do all these things get damaged? From liver damage, toxic bile leaking into the system, which contains retinoic acid and stored retinol esters. Does this all make sense? These things are known to be toxic in the bloodstream. So let's go to the next one. I don't want to spend too much time on this today. I believe this is the paper. Generally, just so you know, if you're pro shots, this is not the place for you. If you made a mistake and got it, I'm sorry. What are we trying to fix? If we're trying to fix it, we're trying to fix the liver damage that it caused. So Anthony Mawson wrote this paper called Multiple Vaccinations and the Enigma of Vaccine Injury. Why can't we figure out what's causing vaccine injury? Again, because nobody looks at the bile. Let me finish my flush niacin. Again, I'm having I believe she's calling it Nia Soda Black today, which is Kelsey Kenny's combination of nicotinate, what am I saying? Buffered flush niacin. I think there's magnesium nicotinate in there. I think there's potassium nicotinate in there. I don't know if there's sodium nicotinate in there, but I feel like I got stuff still on my face. Great stuff. You can find it at her Etsy store. We'll try to put the link. We'll start putting the link to her store in all of our show notes. So anyway, this was probably a contributor to Mawson's retirement. You just can't go against the narrative too hard. Let's see. Recent studies worryingly suggest links between multiple shots and increased risks of diverse multi-system health problems, including allergies, infections, and neuropsychiatric or neurodevelopmental disorders. What could connect all of those? Oh, I don't know, toxic bile leaking into the system, which contains retinoic acid. Here we propose that in susceptible persons, multiple shots activate the retinoid, that's vitamin A cascade, and trigger apoptotic hepatitis, that's liver cells dying, leading to cholestatic toxic bile leakage, liver dysfunction, in which stored vitamin A compounds, retinol esters and retinoic acid, enter the circulation in toxic concentrations. This induces endogenous forms of hypervitaminosis A, with the severity, how strong the symptoms are, severity of adverse outcomes being directly proportional to the concentration of circulating retinoids. In very low concentration, so here's where he's still saying vitamin A is necessary, but it's not. In very low concentrations, vitamin A and its major metabolite retinoic acid contribute to immune function and to the process of immunization. Whereas excess vitamin A increases the risk of adverse events, including common side effects as well as chronic adverse outcomes. The increasing rates of allergy, ear infections, and neurodevelopmental disorders in countries with high rates of shots could be related to mass shots and its impact on liver function and vitamin A metabolism, collectively representing endogenous from within the body manifestations of hypervitaminosis A. That's vitamin A toxicity. Okay. So, what are they accumulating? The more toxic you get, the slower your detox goes. The more toxic you get, the more bile you start leaking into the system. Can this all start from one medication or one shot? Absolutely. Does more medications and more shots cause this to slowly get worse? Yes. Does eating too much vitamin A and taking vitamin D rat poison and taking copper supplements and trying to eat high copper foods, does that cause this stuff too? Yes, we've been over the research of all this stuff. But yeah, that was pretty much the paper that I think forced him into retirement. So we got rubella virus infection, the congenital rubella syndrome, and the link to autism. Oh, now he's going to connect vitamin A to autism. Oh, well, you can't go speaking poorly of shots and then start connecting things to autism. So again, he's still going with the virus theory. That's, folks, not everybody's going to move as fast on these things. There was somebody here last week who was like, oh, you don't think viruses are real? Whatever viruses are, they're evidence of toxicity in the system. There's some sort of response or end product of toxicity in the system. That's all they are, if they even exist. When you start seeing how they analyze for viruses and how many chemicals they use, you start going, well, couldn't that stuff change what's in there? So, evidence is reviewed here, suggesting that the signs and symptoms of rubella may be due to alterations in the hepatic liver metabolism of vitamin A, caused by, or started by the acute phase of the infection. The infection causes mild liver dysfunction and the spillage of stored vitamin A compounds into the circulation, resulting in an endogenous from within the body form of hypervitaminosis A. Given that vitamin A is a known teratogen, that means causes birth defects, it is suggested that rubella infection occurring in the early weeks of pregnancy causes, I'll have to look up CRS, through maternal motherly liver dysfunction and exposure of the developing fetus to excessive vitamin A. Yes, you can be born with vitamin A toxicity given to you by your mother. We hand down toxicities, folks. You need to take responsibility for your children's health before they are born. It is further proposed that regressive autism results primarily from postnatal, that's after birth, influences of a liver-damaging nature and exposure to excess vitamin A, inducing CRS-like features as a function of vitamin A toxicity, but without the associated dysmorphogenesis. So, could somebody be born with autism? Sure. Could somebody develop autism later? Sure. Could they be caused by the same birth defect causing toxin? Yes. Could a shot or a medication trigger it? Why not? This is why nobody's getting anywhere. There was the whole paper that I've been over before where the pivotal role of aldehyde toxicity in autism. Didn't we just talk about aldehydes? Let's keep going. Did I do the link? Yeah, I think I did the link. Okay. Gulf War illness. Now we're going to type Gulf War illness. So the thing you have to understand is some people may be like, but those guys, the military over in the Middle East was exposed to all sorts of different toxins. If you understand toxic bile theory, oh, sorry, let me go find that. If you understand toxic bile theory, the specific toxins don't matter so much. It's that they all accumulate in the liver, and then the liver makes the toxic bile, dumps the toxic bile eats holes in things, and then it leaks into your bloodstream, and then you put the toxins in your blood. One of the problems with vitamin A is it does make retinoic acid, which then goes around and does the chemical peel thing to your tissues. That's just one of the toxins. One of them. Sorry, let's go find CRS. Congenital rubella syndrome. There it is. Rubella is a systemic virus infection, toxic bile dump, that is usually mild. It can, however, cause severe birth defects known as the congenital rubella syndrome when infection occurs early in pregnancy. Okay. Oh, sorry, there's that. Here it is. Here's CRS. I already sent that link. Gulf War illness. Here we go. So what they're saying here, let me get to this. So before the Gulf War, they gave the soldiers all sorts of new shots. They gave them all sorts of new meds. Most potential exposures implicated in Gulf War illness were not well documented, but include varying levels of several neurotoxicants, as well as the anticholinergic drug pyridostigmine bromide, which was routinely taken as prophylactic against the nerve agent Somon. Again, the specific drugs don't matter. It damages the liver. Oh, while some veterans also took chloroquine or hydroxychloroquine as an anti-malarial agent, the literature suggests an association between receipt of multiple shots prior to or during the conflict, perhaps combined with other exposures, and Gulf War illness. Now, do you know that chloroquine and mefloquine and hydroxychloroquine, they all slow down ALDH. This is in the literature. Gosh, slowing down ALDH causes problems with what? The liver and making bile, so you don't get rid of it as much, so you would build up toxicity. They're exposing these guys to more toxicity. They get problems very quickly. Do you see? The features of Gulf War illness also overlap with those of fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome. Have you seen my show here on fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome and multiple chemical sensitivity? In all of which liver dysfunction has been documented, suggesting a unifying hypothesis. We call that toxic bile theory. So, the suggested mechanism for Gulf War illness is thus a chemically induced impaired liver function. We call it cholestasis, or leaky toxic bile, with the spillage of stored vitamin A compounds, retinoids, into the circulation in toxic concentrations, resulting in an endogenous chronic form of hypervitaminosis A. And he goes and he links the common symptoms to this. And if you go and you watch my fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome and the ME, you'll see that I connected all to toxic bile theory again. So I want you to pay attention here when we talk about malaria. So some people justify ivermectin because they'll be like, oh, it helps with onchocerciasis or however it's pronounced. Oops, did I just do that? I did. Okay. So Anthony Mawson is going to go and connect this parasite disease to vitamin A and how the parasite causes systemic symptoms to vitamin A. And if you think none of this is based on references and research, you need to go read the whole paper. I'm not going to go over the whole paper here. Look how many more I got to go. There's still like 20 more. Based on the observation that the parasite Onchocerca volvulus selectively absorbs vitamin A from the host. Poisons beget poisons. A parasite feeding on vitamin A. So when we have people in the program who say that they're passing parasites, and we're not doing anything anti-parasite, what are we starving the parasites of? Do you think? Are we starving the parasite of vitamin A? Maybe the parasites need vitamin A, but we don't. Maybe this is why our people notice that parasites are going away without having to kill them, and why everybody else seems to have recurring, people who have actual real parasite problems. It keeps coming back. It never goes away. They do drug after drug and herb after herb, and they just basically they're like, I just have parasites, and they just keep coming back. Well, it's because you're still toxic. Based on the observation that the parasite Onchocerca volvulus selectively absorbs vitamin A from the host and the known toxicity of vitamin A in higher concentration, it was hypothesized that dying microfiliae, the parasite, release their stores of vitamin A into the host circulation in toxic concentrations, inducing the signs and symptoms of onchocerciasis or cerciasis, however you want to pronounce it. So we conducted a pilot study. Let's see. So they didn't get what they wanted out of the study, but they're trying. But that was just the theory that they're dying and spilling it into the circulation. What if it wasn't that? What if it's the parasites somehow attacking the liver, affecting the liver, causing it to dump more bile into the system? Does that make sense? That it could cause the systemic problems, and it doesn't have to be the parasites dying. Die-off is mostly, in my opinion, the die-off theory is mostly alternative health mumbo-jumbo. Like, I don't know. There's no evidence of a Herxheimer reaction. People use the words, and then I say, can you show me evidence that these symptoms are being caused by a mass die-off of anything? And yes, you can find the words Herxheimer reaction in the literature, but nobody's documented it. It's a theory. The Herxheimer reaction is a theory. Actually, Emma, I have been discussing with some of the really inner people in the vitamin A world a way that is exclusive to women potentially to get rid of more vitamin A, and that is nursing or actually inducing lactation. And you'll see in here, I mean, there's the study from Rodal where baby mice died because there was so much vitamin A in the mother's milk. So if the baby mice died because there was so much vitamin A in the mother's milk, and mother's milk is fatty, vitamin A is fatty, what if you could induce lactation with, let's say, pumping and detox faster that way? Only women could do this. Men, you're out of luck. But men, you make more bile than women. So you have that advantage. But ladies, this is a legit theory. When you see the breastfeeding stuff, really toxic moms, you're going to see that your milk is yellowish when it comes out. What do you think's in it? I know of one person who is experimenting with this right now. No, I'm not going to say who it is. Malaria, Epstein-Barr virus infection, EBV. So this is the chronic fatigue syndrome virus, right? EBV infection and the pathogenesis of Burkitt's lymphoma. Wow, we're going to tie all these things together. Malaria, Epstein-Barr virus infection, and the pathogenesis of Burkitt's lymphoma. Joe was saying maybe men and women could expel through armpits and crotch skin where fat's supposed to excrete, though that's the whole basis of the flush niacin cardio sauna approach, which, funny thing, we just talked about Gulf War illness. Well, let me connect this real, because this is kind of funny now that we're talking about Gulf War illness and vitamin A. Okay, so you just saw the paper from R Mawson about vitamin A being related to Gulf War illness. He's really saying spilling toxic bile out. It contains vitamin A as retinoic acid and other things, and it's causing systemic problems. Okay, vitamin A is mostly a fat-soluble product. Some people out there say that retinoic acid is water-soluble. Okay, maybe. There is another paper. I've been over this before. Let's see. Gulf War illness sauna niacin PubMed. Let's go look. Here it is. So we just talked about vitamin A. Now, the funny thing I want to go over is I don't want to promote these guys, but there's a group out there. Their whole big thing is niacin saunas, and then you do some cardio, and then you do your here we are. You do your cardio, and then you do some infrared sauna. Okay? If you want to know, these guys actually say, I want you to understand what they say about fat-soluble vitamins. They say that this approach, sauna, well, flush niacin, cardio, sauna. They say that it will deplete you of the fat-soluble vitamins so that you need to take more of them to keep your levels up. Does it make sense that your body would like sweat out extra vitamins? If we're here saying that these things are alcohols and aldehydes and they're mostly toxins, and you sweat them out from the fatty areas, they specifically talk about armpits and groin as where you sweat out a different type of sweat, the apocrine sweat, I believe. And it's got different compounds in it. That's why your pits and your crotch smell different, is because there's different stuff in them, fatty compounds. Weird that R Mawson writes a paper connecting vitamin A to Gulf War illness, and then there's this paper, which is saunas and cardio and long-term, flush niacin, cardio, sauna, and they get better from it. And they're sweating out vitamin A. What a weird coinky-dink. You take those three things together. This is what I do. So yeah, they got better. Let's just see. They did daily 4 to 6 week intervention. So 4 to 6 weeks. These guys were probably on like disability. They had time to do this. Consisted of exercise, sauna-induced sweating, crystalline nicotinic acid. This means quick release. This is not slow release. It's not sustained release. It's powder or it's in a capsule, and other supplements. Who knows what else they gave them? Let's see. SF36. This is like a quality of life questionnaire. Mean SF36 physical component summary score after the intervention was 6.9 points higher compared to... Okay, let me get better here. Their score improved. That's a good thing. 6.9 points higher compared to wait list control, and 11 of 16 quality of life, pain, and fatigue measures improved with no serious adverse events. Most improvements were retained after 3 months. What did they help them? They gave them a nutrient that you need to detox. They gave them flush niacin. Who knows what was in the other supplements? Then they had them sweat it out. They helped get rid of toxicity. Am I a Scientologist? No. Is it possible that Mr. Hubbard, like a broken clock, was right twice a day? Quite likely in this situation. So we can just connect all of these things. Let me go find, let's go back here. Okay, so the malaria and the EBV one. A geographical, so location and causal connection has long been recognized between malaria a parasite, Epstein-Barr virus infection, toxicity, and Burkitt's lymphoma, which is a type of cancer. But the underlying mechanisms remain obscure. So there's something connecting these. What could it be, folks? Potential clues with the malaria parasite, another parasite, selectively absorbs vitamin A from the host and depends on it for its biological activities. Secondly, alterations in vitamin A metabolism have been implicated in many forms of cancer, including Burkitt's lymphoma. The first author, this is Mawson, proposed that the Merozoite stage malaria parasite emerging from the liver uses its absorbed vitamin A, which it probably got from the liver, as a cell membrane destabilizer to invade the red blood cells, causing anemia and other signs and symptoms of the disease as manifestations of an endogenous form of hypervitaminosis A. So, thus, an endogenous, from inside the body, form of retinoid vitamin A toxicity related to malaria infection may be the common factor linking frequent malaria, Epstein-Barr infection, and Burkitt's lymphoma, whereby prolonged exposure of lymphatic tissues to high concentrations of retinoids, vitamin A, may combine to induce B-cell translocation and increase the risks of Burkitt's lymphoma. Oh, you mean as toxicity accumulates, cancer starts showing up? Cancer is toxicity? Oh. Did I get that link, Joe? I did, right? Did I do this one? No, I didn't. Here we go. I'll get it. Oh, I did. So now let's go into birth stuff. So what year are we at now? 2016. A role for the... So imagine how many papers Mawson's writing. All right, we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 since 2021. A role for the liver in parturition and preterm birth. I just want you guys to see the definition of parturition so you know what this paper's about. The act or process of giving birth, childbirth. What do we see on our program? We see women having much easier childbirth than they used to in previous kids before the vitamin A detox program. So let's find it. Where were we? No, not that one. This one. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Look at this. However, even large enteral, that means like dosed inside the gut, doses of vitamin A from birth fail to increase plasma concentrations. They fail to increase the blood of vitamin A or improve outcomes in preterm or extremely low birth weight infants. Wait, so you mean, where do you think the body's putting all this vitamin A? It's not increasing their blood concentrations. Where do you think this newborn put it? They shoved it all in their liver. Does that make sense? And it's not improving their health because it's not a vitamin. Large doses did nothing except get stored in the liver. These findings suggest an underlying impairment in the secretion of vitamin A from the liver, where about 80% of the vitamin A is stored. An underlying impairment. So let me tell you, Mawson, over the years, as he saw this more and more, he started to realize more and more that vitamin A is a toxin. So as we go back in his papers, you'll see more apologetics for vitamin A. But as we got towards the COVID stuff, we start seeing more of it come out as like, this is probably not good for people at all. An underlying impairment in the secretion of vitamin A from the liver. Oh, maybe it's storing it and it's holding onto it so it doesn't hurt you. Where about 80% of the vitamin is stored. Just remember, folks, anyone who says that the liver doesn't store things doesn't know anything about the liver, and you should avoid listening to them probably entirely. unreal that they can't even look at the simple research. This has been known. When did I think I posted a paper from like 1920 where they said they know that as soon as they discovered vitamin A, they started saying, well, it's stored in the liver. Yeah, I think it was 1925 or something like that. Very soon after they discovered vitamin A, they were like, yeah, it's stored in the liver. We've known this for decades and decades. Vitamin A accumulates in the liver and breast. You mean fatty tissues? During pregnancy and in preparation for lactation. So, could ladies use induced lactation with, like, let's say a breast milk pump to potentially detox vitamin A and other fat-soluble toxins faster? Seems like it could make sense. Is it going to hurt anybody? No. Regarding the mechanism of childbirth, it is conjectured that by 9 months of gestation, 9 months of pregnancy, that liver accumulation of vitamin A from the liver is such that mobilization and secretion, it's not coming out of the liver, are impaired to the point where stored vitamin A compounds in the form of retinol esters and retinoic acid begin to spill or leak into the circulation, resulting in amniotic membrane destabilization. You don't want that. And the initiation of parturition. He's talking about toxic bile leaking into the system. Here we go. If, however, the accumulation and spillage of stored retinoids reaches a critical threshold prior to 9 months, example, due to cholestatic liver disease, toxic bile. Just so you know, I've shown the paper before. Research now says that subclinical cholestasis, they mean toxic bile leaking below the levels that doctors will say it's happening. So it doesn't mean it's not happening. They're just saying it's not high enough yet. But they're saying subclinical, which means below the clinician's ability to say that it's there or to determine that it's there, is totally normal in pregnancies these days. They're saying toxic leaky bile causing symptoms but not showing up on labs enough is happening it's normal in pregnancy. It is a normal thing in pregnancy. Does modern medicine have any idea of how to make pregnancies better? How many of you ladies did alternative stuff for pregnancies and still had terrible deliveries and pregnancies? They poisoned you with vitamin A, like Weston Price approaches, and what I forget the other one where they push a lot of vitamin A. Anyway, which is common. Wait, cholestatic liver disease, which is common. Sorry, I'm about to sneeze. Okay. Cholestatic liver disease is common in mothers of preterm infants. Worse birth outcomes with worse livers. Shocking. The increased retinol esters and or retinoic acid rupture, they rupture the fetal membranes. Wait, I'm on it. It's right here. Joe, is this what's showing what I'm highlighting? This is right. Yes, okay. The increased retinol esters and or retinoic acid rupture the fetal membranes. Chemical peel, folks. Chemical peel, dissolving layers of cells, including preterm birth and its complications, including retinopathy. Oh, wait, eye damage. Do you remember the testimonial? Eyes, too much bile dumping, leaking into the system, causing eye issues. We just went over that testimonial. That's the part that's not better yet. Necrotizing enterocolitis. The gut tissue is dying. And bronchopulmonary dysplasia. That's lung problems. Okay? So, I think I've read enough of these. What I'm going to do, we're just going to run through the rest of these papers. You can read them if you want. I will post all the links in here. And, do you need this link, Joe? Or the one before it? This one. Okay, got it. So I'm just going to run through the rest of these. I'll show them to you guys. You can go and look at them. It's going to sound like the same thing. An endogenous form of hypervitaminosis A is causing these problems. So I want you to think about it. With all the conditions I'm going to go through, like, right, I still have all these tabs to go through. They're all different parts of the body. But he's linking them all to the same thing. Vitamin A from in the liver leaking out into the system. And I'm going to tell you that that's happening because of toxic bile. This is how I came about with toxic bile theory. It's not just vitamin A, but vitamin A, retinoic acid, is a chemical peel, and it will dissolve all sorts of your cells. Oh, like the amniotic membrane. Okay. So let's just run through the rest of these. So I'm just showing you how many conditions. This is why we don't have protocols, and I don't have to have protocols to like help the gentleman at the start who was a chiropractor who has gotten rid of all those symptoms. I don't have a protocol for all these symptoms that Mawson goes over, that the gentleman earlier went over about all the things we've helped. There is no protocol because it's all connected to the same problem. You just have your problems show up different than somebody else's because you've got different genetics, you've got different toxicities, you've got different nutrient deficiencies, you've got different mental states. Obviously, men and women have different parts, so things are going to show up differently. This all makes sense? Okay, Zika virus. Wait, another mosquito-borne disease. So Anthony Mawson. Oh, sorry, here it is. I forgot to share it. Pathogenesis of Zika virus-associated embryopathy. Oh, you mean more birth defects? Gosh, vitamin A's never been connected with birth defects. Steven Johnson syndrome and toxic epidermal necrolysis or necrolysis, however you want to say it. This is death of tissues, like falling apart. Death chopped up. Toxic epidermal toxicity in the skin, and it's actually like straight up dying. Could retinoids play a causative role? Let's just go over this real quick. So they gave this one acronym because it goes together. Stevens-Johnson syndrome and toxic epidermal necrolysis are overlapping manifestations on a spectrum of acute drug-induced conditions. What do drugs do? They hurt your liver. They cause toxic bile leakage, associated with severe blistering, skin peeling, and multi-organ damage. Gosh, what's leaking into the system? I hope you get it yet. Here we go. This paper reviews evidence suggesting that the different medications implicated in SJS10 have the common property of interacting and synergizing with endogenous from within the body retinoids, vitamin A, and the various forms of vitamin A is what they're saying, they're congeners. In many instances, causing the latter to accumulate in and damage the liver, the main storage organ for vitamin A. It is hypothesized that liver damage leads to the spillage of toxic retinoid compounds into the circulation, resulting in an endogenous form of hypervitaminosis A and cytotoxicity, that's toxicity to the cells, with widespread apoptosis, cell death, mediated by granulysin and recognized as SJS10. So he goes and shows evidence that medications are connected to vitamin A metabolism. Isn't that what I do? Ivermectin slows ALDH. Hydroxychloroquine slows ALDH. Quercetin slows ALDH. Vitamin D slows ALDH. What are you being fed from all sides? From the mainstream alternative and the mainstream conventional ALDH inhibitors, which mess with your liver. So, we've got dengue hemorrhagic fever. Again, I'm going to start running through these quicker. Retinoids, race, and the pathogenesis. That's the disease creation of dengue hemorrhagic fever. There it is. Sorry about that. There's that one. I'm going to spend a second on this one, though. Because we've been talking about it. Breastfeeding, retinoids, and postpartum depression. a new theory. The idea here, folks, again, fat-soluble toxic vitamin A is particularly stored in the breasts. And let's just go over this. So let's just do a little logic here before I read the important sentence. If people be like, why is vitamin A in breast milk if it's not supposed to be there? I've shown that there's like 40 toxins in breast milk that everybody would say, well, those aren't vitamins, obviously. Those are toxins. And I'm like, You get it now? You sweat out fat-soluble toxins from your armpits and your groin, and you sweat out vitamin A from your armpits and your groin, and you store fat-soluble toxins in fat, and the body dumps them through fat things like breast milk. Because imagine this, if you have a newborn and the mother is going mental because she's leaking toxic bile into her system and it's affecting her brain and she can't take care of the child, what's going to happen to the child? The child's going to potentially die. The child is born much less toxic than the mother. That's what the placenta is for. The placenta is a third liver, the mother's liver, the baby's liver, the placenta. It's a liver that you're supposed to throw away. Don't eat it. It's toxic. So you can get rid of a lot of the vitamin A by throwing away the placenta and other fat-soluble toxins. But then the mother has to, or it's just the way the body works, the mother's going to put fat-soluble toxins into the milk that the baby is consuming, and it's going to help the mother to get less toxic. Let's see what happens with that. Oh, and so we've seen that nursing is associated with lower rates of breast cancer, I believe. I've seen that before. Okay. Prolonged breastfeeding is associated with a reduced risk of postpartum depression, but the mechanisms are not well understood. Well, here, let me help you. I have a whole live stream on depression and toxic bile theory. It is a detox. Breastfeeding is, in effect, a detox for the mother. You may not like it, ladies, that you're putting poisons into the baby, but you are. So the less you have in you, the less you'll put in the babies. There is increasing evidence that retinoids in higher concentration are associated with cognitive disturbances and mood disorders, including depression and suicide, and prolonged lactation reduces maternal stores of retinoids. Consistent with this hypothesis, it's estimated that an amount of vitamin A is listen to this. It is estimated that an amount of vitamin A is transferred from mother to infant during the first 6 months of exclusive breastfeeding, equivalent to 76% of a dose known to cause acute vitamin A poisoning in an adult. Sounds like a good way to detox. I mean, yeah, it'll be a little bit of a pain, but ladies, you have this potential opportunity. There's no drawbacks to it other than the time. If you chose to, okay, so here's something that here I want to go over. This is a little moral and ethical thing that I want to go over. So some people don't want to donate blood. Donating blood takes fluids out of you, takes toxic fluids out of you, could potentially move you faster towards emptying out these toxins. Some people here go, well, I don't want to go donate blood because I don't want to give my toxicity to somebody. By the time somebody's needing blood, they need blood, like it's a life or death thing. Think of how many other people out there are not detoxing at all, are super toxic, and they're still going to give their blood. And here you are, if you're doing what we do here, you're putting nutrients into the system, you're putting less toxins in the system. Your blood almost immediately is by definition probably better than theirs. Okay? When somebody needs blood, if we, I know some people are like, the elites and blood and they're drinking whatever. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I'm not going to say either way. I don't care. But if I want to go donate blood, I'm going to donate blood because it's good for me. Whatever happens with it after it, I don't know. I can't control that. Same thing with with nursing. If I'm not nursing, I'm thinking of like milking or pumping. Let's say you're a woman and you want to pump to detox and you choose to do this. Do I know how well it works yet? No, I don't. Like I said, we have one person working on it. And then let's say you've been pumping a long time. This is where we get into moral and ethical stuff. There are women who can't make breast milk. Is it, would you rather a baby was feeding on formula when they're giving them copper in that formula and vitamin A and vitamin D and manganese and probably soy? Nasty. So here's what I'm going to say, ladies. If you watch today and you decide to start pumping and you're doing decently in the program and you're feeling better and you're able to pump, if you wanted to find some other mothers who might benefit from that milk, I would throw that out there as that would be a positive thing for you to do. You don't have to tell them you're doing it for detox. So, I mean, look here. This is just normal people. This is normies. It is estimated that the amount of vitamin A is transferred from mother to infant during the first 6 months of exclusive breastfeeding, equivalent to 76% of a dose known to cause acute vitamin A poisoning in an adult. So imagine the mothers who have trouble nursing. They may already be so toxic that they can't even produce milk. The toxicity has damaged their production. So let's keep going. It's all just theory so far. The pathogenesis, so another paper, he wrote a couple papers on malaria, the pathogenesis of malaria, a new perspective. I'm not going to read these. Role of fat-soluble vitamins. I've been over this one before. Role of fat-soluble vitamins A and D in the pathogenesis of influenza, a new perspective. He talks about the flu being a massive dump or leak of vitamin A into the bloodstream, and that's what's causing your symptoms. Retinoids in the treatment of glioma. This is a type of brain cancer. They try to use retinoids to treat it. If anything, using vitamin A to treat anything, folks, it suppresses the problem and then it comes back worse later. Yet the results of retinoid treatment, they'll use retinoic acid to treat cancers. Yet the results of retinoid treatment have only been modestly beneficial and usually short-lived. Oh, you mean like duration paradox? Oh, shocking. Studies also indicate that vitamin A excess and supplementation have pro-oxidant effects and are associated with increased risks of mortality or risk of death from cancer and other diseases. I'm sure then using vitamin A to treat cancer was a really good idea. So, negative feedback, slowing detox. The modest and temporary benefits of retinoid treatment could result from a process of feedback inhibition. The body slowing down detox and bile production. I have the study showing vitamin A decreases your bile production. Feedback inhibition, whereby exogenous retinoids, that's taking vitamin A compounds from the outside, temporarily inhibits the endogenous synthesis of these compounds. Well, let me tell you about the research that I've shown before. Retinoic acid inhibits ALDH. It's in a study, it's in a paper title. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I'll switch to the thing in a sec. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Well, here's one. All trans retinoic acid downregulates ALDH1. So if you decrease ALDH, you slow down bile production, but it's building up. So you get short-lived improvements. And then the dam bursts. And then you're leaking everything. That's how this works. I don't know why. When we apply the ideas of like plumbing and electrical systems and these concepts that we use and automotive, and we apply these concepts, then we can start to make sense out of how the body actually works, instead of like just doing things like, oh, this herb helps detox. Like anybody who ever says like this herb does this, and you go, why? What's it doing? And they're just like, oh, we just know it helps with like urinary issues. And you go, why? What's it doing? What is it doing? And they're like, it just helps. And you're like, okay, so it's just like a drug. It's like with pharmaceutical drugs. You're like, what is it doing? They're like, well, it affects this receptor and this. And you go, why is that receptor broken? And they go, oh, no. You're just broken. So again, we're back here. The modest and temporary short-lived benefits of vitamin A treatment could result from a process of feedback inhibition. It slows down ALDH, it slows down bile production, whereby vitamin A temporarily inhibits or slows down the synthesis or the actual, what he means here is detox process of these compounds. It's inhibiting the detox process of these compounds, which is just what I showed in this paper. And there's more like this. Okay, again, now I'm going to really start going through these fast. So what can we connect here? Towards a theory of childhood learning disorders, hyperactivity, and aggression. So he connects all of these things in this paper to vitamin A toxicity. On the association between low resting heart rate and chronic aggression, retinoid toxicity hypothesis. Ramon, mutations in the ALDH when the ALDH runs slow causes aldehydes to accumulate, which is, you can call them inborn errors of metabolism, but really it's just toxicity. They will do everything they possibly can to avoid blaming toxicity. Everything they possibly can. Because if they start talking about toxicity, the game's over for them. Because they caused it. Bone pain, growth failure, and skin rash after an upper respiratory illness, which is dumping of bile into the system, right? In a boy with autism. He's got bile problems already. Possible association with altered retinoid metabolism. This is another one on the river blindness, onchocerciasis associated morbidity. This is, disease rates. Hypothesis. Possible role of retinoids in hepatitis B virus-associated liver damage. Toxic bile containing vitamin A damages the very cells that make bile. The liver cells that make bile, if the bile is too toxic, it actually damages those very cells and they start leaking. Does this sound familiar with what we're going over today? Could bronchial asthma also be an endogenous from within, pulmonary as in lungs, expression of vitamin A toxicity? Yes. Actually, let me go find this other paper. Let me see if I still have it on here. There it is. I do not know if Anthony Mawson has any of these references in his paper, but vitamin A toxicity has been fairly well linked to asthma in adults. This is an old thing of mine. Relationship of fish and cod oil intake with adult asthma. Adult consumption of cod oil had a U-shaped association with asthma, with the highest risks in those taking cod liver oil never and daily. Well, there's something wrong with the never. Cod liver oil intake and incidence of asthma in Norwegian adults, the Hunt study. Wait. Cod liver oil intake was significantly associated with an incident asthma with an odds ratio of 1.62 after adjustment for all these things. The positive association was consistent across age, sex, family history of asthma, and BMI. Conclusions: intake of cod liver oil with high vitamin A content was significantly associated with increased incidence of adult onset asthma. Okay. Riri, I'll type it here. I'll help you. Mawson. And you can always review the video. And if you're searching for him on PubMed, it looks like this: Mawson AR. Okay, so there's, the people will try to say, like, the people out there, the protocol pushers will be like, it has to have the right balance of vitamin A and D that's natural in the cod. And I'm like, wouldn't all the cods, because, the cod having different feeding zones, couldn't they all have different amounts of these things? And remember, it's vitamin A and vitamin D in cod liver oil. Both of them cause calcium excess, calcium deposits, calcification. And then there's the PUFAs in it, the toxic PUFAs that turn into malondialdehyde, which, as we've been over many, many times, slows down ALDH itself. So malondialdehyde is the very biggest thing from eating PUFAs that cause the seed oils, especially, that causes you problems. And we have research showing malondialdehyde itself slows down ALDH, which then causes bile issues. Do you see how this goes? Multivitamin supplements, full of garbage. Multivitamins are full of garbage. Do not take any multivitamin. Intake of multivitamins only was associated with an increased odds ratio for incident asthma. Oh, wait, where'd it go? Why did that disappear? Oh, that was the last thing. So anyway, don't take multivitamins, garbage. And I put that link on there, right? Yep. Okay. So this is my old website. If you guys want to come here and search for things that I may have written about, it's nutritionrestored.com. This is the main website. Here, I'll put this in here, the blog-forum. And then you can just put things in the search box if you want to see if I wrote on them. But this is like, let's see how old this is. 2018. So we're at 6 years now from some of these articles. Okay. Matt Stone, who introduced me to vitamin A toxicity, and Grant Genereux, Matt Stone has fully controlled his asthma with a low vitamin A diet to show the connection in a real person. Okay. Possible role of endogenous from within the body, vitamin A toxicity, in the pathophysiology, the cause of primary biliary cirrhosis. Just think of so fatty liver would generally be, it's kind of like this. So you guys could imagine, and I'm not saying these two things go together, but I've talked about before how most people, like if you're an overtype, typically more overweight. Like if you think of fatty liver as kind of like similar to that, like fatty liver, probably go with a bigger person. These are not like locked on associations, but think of it as like, we talk about underweight. And underweight people are often, in my experience, they're sicker and they take longer to fix. The undertypes. Well, if you think of what a cirrhotic liver is doing, cirrhosis, it's like shriveling up like a raisin. So you could think of kind of like the manifestations of these things, the phenotypes. Overweight would be more like fatty liver, more like accumulating stuff. And undertypes could be, I'm not saying undertypes have cirrhosis or that overtypes have fatty liver. I'm just saying this is like a visual. Undertypes can't keep weight on, and that would be more like the liver kind of turning into a raisin, more like cirrhosis. Okay? So anyway, here's the cirrhosis paper. If you didn't know, somebody's going to go out and be like, but the paper said that vitamin A is low in liver disease. No, because they did all those evaluations. They did the wrong chemical analysis of them. And when they finally did it right, they were like, holy cow, there's so much vitamin A in these livers. And the people who wrote the paper, they said everybody else was doing it wrong. They were analyzing it wrong. Oops. Or were they trying to hide it from you? I don't know. Gout and vitamin A intoxication. Is there a connection? Anthony Mawson actually did 2 papers on it. Did I get that last link? I think I did. Systemic lupus erythematosus, SLE, renal disease, kidney disease. Remember, this is what Grant had. Grant had chronic kidney disease. He was basically he had chronic kidney disease, jaundice, skin turning yellow, right? Liver problems, and really, really bad eczema. And he fixed them all with his low vitamin A prison diet of beef or bison, black beans, browner, and white rice. Hemodialysis. So this is what Grant was heading towards, and vitamin A. Maybe Grant found this paper. Did I put this one up there? 7.6. No, I got to put this one up. And Grant was probably to this day the first person that his nephrologists, his kidney doctors, had ever seen fully recover from chronic kidney disease. I can say that recently I believe that my kidneys reached some new level because my lower back stiffness that I used to get, which I believe was related to bile dumping hitting my kidneys, my lower back stiffness is so much better now. That was one of my classic bile dump symptoms. And nowadays I'm waking up and I'm kind of expecting the stiffness, and it's not there. Hypervitaminosis A, toxicity, and gout. This was the first paper he wrote in 84 on it, and then there was the later paper here. What was this? 91. Okay. Here, this one. This was the 91. This is the 84 one. Okay. One more, which we kind of already went over. Well, we just mentioned it earlier. Oh, this was the Gulf War illness one. We've already been over this. I know I already have this one saved. So that's Mawson's work. Yeah. Let me pull up my. Let me stop. I'm going to stop sharing, Joe. Let me get in here, go here. Okay. So that's Mawson's work. That is what the entire basis of toxic bile theory. Grant Genereux opened the door to vitamin A toxicity. Anthony Mawson's papers started to connect vitamin A toxicity to systemic symptoms. And I'm pretty sure that the word cholestasis in Anthony Mawson's papers is what led me to start looking into toxic bile. And then I started looking up things like, does copper cause cholestasis? Oh, yes, it does. Does manganese, not magnesium, but manganese cause cholestasis? Oh, yes, it does. Do all of these toxins cause cholestasis? Drugs. Go search for a drug and liver injury. That's cholestasis. Liver diseases are cholestasis. When they start saying, if you have elevated liver enzymes, that's one way that you can see that you have cholestasis going on. Elevated bilirubin, there's all sorts, you can do serum bile. Do any of them matter? I mean, you could see if you're improving. Sure, but does it change what we're doing? No. Your vitamin A blood level doesn't change what we do. We're still going to have you eat a low vitamin A diet. no matter how high or low it is. Remember how Mawson was saying sometimes it seems like vitamin A gets stuck in the liver? If it was getting stuck in your liver, your blood levels would go down, but that doesn't mean it's leaving your liver. You understand? This is why anybody like vitamin A lovers out there, like certain, Weston Pricers and all this stuff, they actually still go by blood vitamin A levels when the research over and over has said that the blood vitamin A level has nothing to do with how much is in the liver. You could have a liver full of toxic vitamin A and your blood tests could still look deficient. It's in the literature. They've done studies on low vitamin A diets where they put people on a low vitamin A diet for 2 years and there was no problems. And there's a study in the New England Journal of Medicine and JAMA on low vitamin A diets. Caused no problems, except there may have been a deficiency in the diet, like that epilepsy when I went over epilepsy. When there was a guy who got rid of his epilepsy, but he started getting vision problems. He was eating a zinc deficient diet, I guarantee you. He was trying to do a 0 vitamin A diet. That's a problem. We don't do that. It's not because we need vitamin A. It's because if you try to go to 0, you're not going to get enough nutrition. And that study, the JAMA or the NEG, the epilepsy one was like 1950s or 60s. So if you're getting problems on a low vitamin A diet, you probably have a zinc deficiency. That's the first thing I would think of. And your diet may just suck. You could just drink oil all day and that'd be terrible for you. But if you drink MCT oil all day, you might be on a 0 vitamin A diet, but it doesn't mean it's good for you. So anyway, let me look at the super chats now. So Oscar F is saying he can barely salt anymore, causes flu-like symptoms, headache, tonsil stones creation, etc. at the same time. Potassium supplement causes cold feet. That's very atypical. Now, first of all, I don't doing individual stuff like this is something I usually do in my office hours, where I know that people have gotten my spiel, or Nathan, or soon Kelsey or Hope. They've gotten the spiel. They've looked at the testing. There is something else going on here. There's something. So I'm just going to say it here, Oscar, I don't want to go piece by piece, but I don't know what you're doing. Magnesium, potassium, sodium. I don't know what your health problems are. Zinc, molybdenum, selenium, whether you're doing an obscene amount of fiber, whether you're doing, like charcoal. This is not really the place where we can go into all of these details, because you guys need to imagine if all of a sudden people come on here and trying to get me figuring out the problem and then giving them an idea of what to do about it, we'd never leave. It would just be analyze my stuff and tell me what to do. The reason why we do the office hours the way we do, where when people buy a package with the testing, they get 6 months of consultations and follow-ups and troubleshooting, because we may try things 1 week and maybe it works. Then it's amazing. Maybe when they come back next week, they're like, well, I tried it and it didn't really work. Okay, let's try something else. So that's where this is like a push-pull kind of thing, like this issue. Okay, so Oscar's adding, was curious if you've heard of salt affecting bile, as it almost feels like it causes a massive bile dump in me, he's saying. Symptoms like swollen lymph, flu, etc. But yeah, it makes sense. So I mean, like on the other hand, we did recently, I went over a testimonial where a gentleman was saying, he was listening to me saying people were, and just so you guys know, if you're Love Your Liver members already, I just updated the Love Your Liver program. I updated the potassium article on supplements and stuff like that. So we just sent out all the social media stuff and all that, just so you guys know to come check and we do update it. There's going to be huge, refinement and expansion and updates to the program as soon as I open up my schedule more for writing. But anyway, this gentleman was saying he was doing lots of salt. Like he was doing a teaspoon of salt every meal, basically. And that he did on his own. He was a do-it-yourselfer. I'm going to tell you guys, we have a salt taste. Salt does not really occur in nature a lot in terms of salt. And it's quite possible that you might be doing too much of it. Now, this is not your case, Oscar, right? You're having issues with it, but I'm going to show that salt can affect things. The testimonial was the guy's doing all this salt and he couldn't take any of the mineral supplements that he wanted to. He tweaked his salt intake way downward, more normal, and then all of a sudden he could tolerate the supplements. So if we were going to say there's that, so let's just say, this is how I figure things out. So if you guys are like, well, why doesn't Dr. Smith know? I'm like, we just look at possibilities and patterns. And again, people be like, what's the mechanism? And I go, I don't know. I'm just trying to solve the problem. So here's the idea, right? We can kind of go by opposite. So if we said too much salt made somebody sensitive to the supplements, what about the opposite of that? Could too much of certain mineral supplements make somebody sensitive to salt? See how that could work both ways? Some people take zinc and it reduces their copper and vitamin A toxicity symptoms amazingly. Some people take a little bit of zinc and it seems to trigger massive bile dumping of copper and vitamin A and they get all their symptoms. You can have the same thing. You can have totally different problems, or you can have benefits and negatives from the exact same supplement in totally wildly different doses based on how the body responds. This is why we do the office hours, is so we can tweak these things. And so really what we do a lot of times is give people permission to listen to their body and to say what we're really looking for. And just so people understand, because people will be like, well, I take this and you say this is bad and it makes me feel good. And I go, well, crackheads love crack. It doesn't mean it's good for them. I like eating chocolate. Oh, okay, cool. It's not good for you. You're addicted to it, but that's, just because you feel good doing something doesn't mean it's good for you. As they just showed in that Mawson paper, they give these people with cancer retinoic acid, short-term temporary improvements until the problem gets worse down the line. That's how it works. Do you not understand that that's like the whole basis of conventional medicine and most of alternative medicine is giving poisons that suppress a symptom? That's what they do. Like, you don't have an herb deficiency. If you're taking mega doses of a orthomolecular supplement, you're just suppressing something. If they tell you to take something away from food, they are striving for a drug-like effect, because what are we supposed to eat? Food. So if you're taking supplements, you want the supplements to improve the food. Is this making sense? So, but yeah, Oscar, right now, one of the things we might do, like if you're eating, Oscar, are you eating red meat? Yeah, he said when he salts more, he gets headache, nausea, and flu-like symptoms. That definitely sounds very much like, he says, yes, a lot, 45 milligrams of zinc a day coming from carnivore. Okay. So here's something you may want to do. But you're saying potassium also causes issues. Is that right? Where did I see that? Oh, potassium supplements cause cold feet. Okay, there it is. Pierre made a joke. Stop assaulting yourself then. Assaulting, A-salt. Yeah, that was funny. That was a good one, Pierre. That was a good one. Okay, so if you're eating, oh, wow. So he says, Oscar says, yep, supplements at least. Food seems okay. Eating around 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day usually. Okay, so Oscar, here's something you can do. Go total up. Just find some basic numbers on nutrition and total up how much sodium you're getting a day from the meat you're eating. It may be quite a decent amount. If you're doing all muscle meat carnivore and you're doing 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day of red meat, then yeah, you might be getting quite a bit of sodium from your diet, and you may not be needing a whole lot more. Now, one of the improvements, you're going to ease up on the daily zinc. That would, folks, I'm very pro zinc. But also, okay, so this is important. Okay, yeah, no, this is wow, I made sense a second ago, and now it's all coming together. Okay, Oscar, so there's no blame being placed here. If you're doing, so the only people, listen to this, folks, the only people who come to me in the beginning of when they're working with me who have adequate zinc levels without supplementing, the only people generally who come to me with adequate zinc levels, like good zinc levels, without supplementing, are all muscle meat carnivores. Okay. So let's say, Oscar, that you're getting plenty of zinc from that much muscle meat, and you've added a supplement on top of it. And maybe, I don't know if you're doing any, 600 milligrams of sodium a day from foods, that's all? It seemed, I don't know, that seems kind of low for me. But anyway, anything can cause anything. And you know how we just did the too much salt made supplement sensitivity, but what if supplement sensitivity, like too much zinc, because you're an all muscle meat carnivore and you may be supplementing zinc on top of it, is making you sensitive to sodium and potassium? Isn't that what I said? So do I have, okay. So you were only carnivore for 2 to 3 months, was confirmed copper toxic on hair test in December, then found me. Okay, so copper depletes potassium. I wouldn't, if you can figure out a dose. So for right now, if you're saying, and this is, I want all of you listening, what I'm trying to show you here is like the thought process. So you can do this for yourself. I am here to teach people how to get themselves better. And it's funny when jokers on Twitter will call me a grifter, like I don't put out any free information. I'm like, bunch of jokers, like, my goodness. We've had lots of people say, oh, I listened to your live stream and I solved this problem for myself. And I'm like, and it was totally free. I'm such a grifter. Anyway, haters gonna hate. What are we gonna do? So copper toxicity would deplete vitamin A. I don't know what your fiber situation is, but you may want to do a little bit, but look at your soluble fiber thing. Are you taking in, could more help? Could less help? With the bile dumping you're getting, could you drop some charcoal in there? See if that helps. Definitely you guys, if you have acid reflux of any type, weren't you mentioning that, I think? In there from nausea. I think you mentioned nausea. If you're getting nausea or GERD already, you're not ready for lactoferrin. Don't do lactoferrin if you're getting nausea or GERD. Okay, there it was. I thought I saw nausea in there. He said barely salt anymore causes flu-like symptoms, headache, tonsil stones creation at the same time. Potassium supplement causes cold feet. If you're getting tonsil stones, I would absolutely be hitting the topical magnesium hard. In the early stages, I would just try to figure. So I would hit the magnesium lotion hard to help with the calcification of the tonsil stones. Okay. Figure out the amount of potassium that, whether it's foods or supplements, So figure out the source and the amount of potassium that does not cause issues. The new articles in the Love Your Liver program, I discuss potassium citrate and how that can help with potentially copper toxicity and calcification. So you guys know the main potassium citrate powder that I found that I like is the micro ingredients one. It's non-GMO. Potassium citrate, if you're going to use it, must be non-GMO. Otherwise, they're using genetically modified black mold to make the citric acid that they are binding to the potassium. We don't want genetically modified black mold metabolites. Okay? They're genetically modified to make the citric acid. Isn't it so nice of them? When you learn how ivermectin is made by bacteria, yeah, you start going, all these things are like, some of these things are just serious bacteria waste products. That's what ivermectin is. So, yeah, you don't want genetically modified black mold citric acid bound to your potassium. So the micro ingredients it's pretty good tasting. It's non-GMO. It works. I'm thinking about, eventually I may make my own bag of it, bag of the powder. There's a lot of things we're working on. I think we got like 10 supplements we're getting quotes on them right now to make we're trying to make all the stuff that we regularly use for people. So it's clean. So it's the stuff that I would use on my own family and myself. So we talked about magnesium. We talked about potassium. With the salt thing for right now, I would say just only use the amount of salt that doesn't cause problems. If that's 0 for now, don't use it. If there's things you're doing, agitators, exercise, heat, sunlight, stress that are aggravating bile dumping, look to get those under control if you can. So Ash, how do I say that? Ashir Mayerify. What's up, Dr. G? AA Ron here. So Aaron is like he's a buddy of mine, amateur level Arizona State arm wrestling champ. He's awesome. Sometimes we've hung out, we've gone to trivia and stuff like that before. We need to get together, Aaron. So yeah, send me a text. But yeah. And then think about the zinc. So like if you might be doing too much zinc can cause, so think about this, too much zinc can cause copper dumping. Copper dumping can deplete potassium. If you're not getting enough potassium, then your sodium starts getting funky. So just these are things to think about. And then just watch out for like too little soluble fiber or too much soluble fiber. Oscar, you're very welcome. But yeah, this is the stuff that we do. There's like Hope is all over the network helping people with troubleshooting and stuff like this all the time. Kelsey's helping people with the nicotinic acid stuff. Yeah, we'd love to have you join us, Oscar, but this is the stuff that I do. And these are just sometimes it's just thought experiments is going, first of all, anything can cause anything. If people are like, no, that couldn't cause that, you go, yeah, it could. Yeah, it could. Like, let's just say, and I'm not saying this is you, Oscar, but could somebody, they were just raised on like their mom decided that salt was the cause of all human health problems and high blood pressure and everything else and heart attacks and all that stuff. So the mom says, we don't salt our food. This is a hypothetical situation. Not that it's ever happened to any of my clients or anything, but let's say they were raised with no salt on the table. There's just no salt. And they grow up and now they have a phobia of all salt. They just will not add it. They're like, I have no taste for salt. I don't want it. I don't put it on anything. And I'm like, let me just say an example of a person I was working with who's drinking green smoothies and never using salt. And she was just so fragile all the time. Very emotional, very, very just fragile. And she started to work with me and I was like, I need you to salt your food a bit. Well, I just don't think I need to do that. And I'm like, I don't think I can get you better if you don't do it. And she just didn't do it. She didn't get better. So anyway, I try. Health practitioners. So it's so awesome that the first testimonial is doing so well, because the healthcare practitioners, people are like, when are you going to start teaching healthcare practitioners this? And I'm like, the healthcare practitioners are the ones who listen to me the least. It's going to be you guys fixing yourselves and then telling your healthcare practitioner friends or your doctors or your NDs or your massage therapists or whatever, telling them about this, that's going to spread it. They have to see that it works. That's how you crack their resistance. They have to see that it works. They have to know that it works. So when I'm talking about family, healthcare practitioners, don't try to just tell them that this is how it is. Fix yourself. And then when they see you and they're like, you look great, you look younger, you look so much more vibrant, everything's just, wow, what are you, when they say, what are you doing? Then you tell them. So like when you go to your 30-year high school reunion like me, and they're like, you look the same as you did in high school, basically. And I'm like, that's cool. I appreciate that. So, but I really do. I think about 10 years ago, a guy recognized me from 8th grade PE. He's like, didn't we have 8th grade PE together? And I was like, he's like naming off the teacher in the middle school. And I'm like, yeah, I guess we did. I didn't recognize the guy, but he recognized me. So, oh yeah, as Emma says, forgive the healthcare practitioners. That's been part of my healing. No joke. Forgiveness. Okay, so here's a very important thing. Forgiveness doesn't mean you're going to let something happen again. Forgiveness just means you're letting go of anger about something. So, one thing that's really, really important to do is if something bad happens to you from somebody else, even if you know it was malicious, like you absolutely believe that they were doing it trying to hurt you, forgiving them will help you. Holding the anger inside only hurts you. Like I said, I'm not a therapist, but I do a lot of personal work. But the anger only hurts you. If you forgive them and you forgive yourself for whatever you want to say was your part in it, like you let them in your life. I forgive myself for letting them in my life. I forgive myself for letting them fool me. I forgive myself for this. And then you forgive them for doing the things that you feel they did to you. You will be better off. It doesn't mean you have to keep them in your life or let them back in your life or ever let that happen to yourself again from anybody else. You have to separate forgiveness from allowing it to happen again. And yes, forgiving the healthcare practitioners in the past who maybe made you worse. They didn't help you, or they made you worse, or they made you feel like it was all in your head. Forgive them. They know not what they do. You get yourself better. Then if you want to go back and, maybe say, hey, I fixed this problem. You want to know how I did it? Then you could tell them about this stuff. Okay. Thanks, John. Wise. He said, wise words, Agent Smith. Yes, that's me. I'm such a shill and a grifter, right? Doing all this stuff. Yeah. And Rustica says, I look at it, they are hammers and see everything as a nail. You can't change their perspective. I mean, now I'm saying this out of all modesty, but how many practitioners do you know, like with this sodium and potassium issue that Oscar just brought up? How many practitioners do you know who would actually even take a second to think about it in the way that I just did? Like, maybe if they were a little smart, they'd be like, well, just don't salt your food then. Like, that's all they do. They'd be like, well, salt makes you feel bad. Don't salt your food. That's conventional medicine, right? Doc, it hurts when I do this. Well, don't do that. I mean, but I do that too. So I'm going to say for right now, don't salt your food. But there's probably something causing it. So what are these other things that we're doing that could cause this problem or some kind of imbalance? And I had never heard of this. Oscar, I had never heard of this today. Like an issue like this, somebody getting really, really sensitive to salt and having potassium causing some issues too. But I just did that working with it live. So I don't know why God gave me this brain, but he did. Okay, so let me see. Let me get to the rest of these. Dylan says, are aldehydes inside of bile? Or do alcohols break down into aldehydes before it reaches the liver? Okay, so let's break this down. Your liver, when it stores toxins, when your liver stores alcohols, it binds the alcohol, whether it's retinol or ethanol or methanol, it binds the alcohol to a free fatty acid ester. Just so you know, in the research, free fatty acids are inflammatory. Triglycerides are not as inflammatory. So triglycerides means there's a backbone and there's 3 glycerols, like fatty acids, coming off of it. Okay? So the glycerol is the spine, and then you have free fatty acids attached to it. So it kind of looks, if you turn it upside down, it would look almost like the way they draw it in the research, it looks like a jellyfish with 3 tentacles. Okay, 3 fatty acids and the glycerol backbone. Tri-3-glycer, that's the glycerol backbone, and it's 3 fatty acids bound to it. Okay, so, but you can have free fatty acids floating around, not bound to a glycerol. Okay, there's diglycerides too, which is 2 fatty acids bound to a glycerol. The new appeal, Bill Gates' apple coating, fruit coating, or whatever that is, mainly monoglycerides and diglycerides. So mono is just 1. So 1 fatty acid bound to a glycerol, and diglycerides is 2 fatty acids bound to a glycerol. I don't trust it, but I'm not sure that it's as bad as people are thinking. I just don't know. I'd rather not eat it. If I didn't have to eat it, I'd rather not eat it. But if the only apples available in the world had it on it, then I'd be peeling them. So, okay. So your liver binds alcohols to a free fatty acid ester. So what I'm going to tell you is retinol is inflammatory, floating around by itself in your blood. That's why your body makes retinol binding protein, is to bind to it, to protect you from it. It also makes cellular retinoic acid binding protein to protect the inside of your cells from retinoic acid by binding to it. Okay, so free retinol is bad. Free fatty acids floating around your system are bad. Those are inflammatory too. This is in the research. So what does your liver do to try to reduce the damage to your entire system? It takes the free fatty acid and the retinol and it binds them together via the enzyme LRAT, lecithin retinol acyl transferase. So it uses choline to bind these 2 things together and shove them in the liver so that they're not in your bloodstream, because when they're in your bloodstream, they're causing the most havoc. So your body's saying, we have toxins inside here. We can either leave them floating around the blood by themselves, or we can bind them together and put them in the liver, get them out of the bloodstream. Your body always picks the slow death over the quick death. So it does that. So in the liver, there are alcohols. There's still the alcohol form bound to the free fatty acid ester, like retinol palmitate. That's what they sell as supplements. That's the most common form of vitamin A found in cod liver oil, in eating liver. Retinol palmitate is the most common one out there. And the form in the supplements and the form in cod liver oil or whatever, it's exactly the same structure. There's no difference. Again, anybody saying that is delusional, and they're not reading the literature. And they haven't seen my natural and synthetic vitamin A's are exactly the same toxicity thread, showing evidence in the literature. Okay? The same paper that showed that the mother mouse killed her offspring because there was so much vitamin A in the breast milk of the, I don't know, what do you call it in a mouse? It's not breast milk. What do they just call it? Nursing? What do they call is there a term for the milk from an animal? You know what I mean? Like mouse milk. Is it just mouse boob milk? I don't know, whatever. It's a good thing you're going to have fun here. Mouse milk. Mousy milk. Anyway. So the mother mouse, who was basically vitamin A toxic, actually killed her offspring, one of them, because the milk was so toxic in vitamin A. Sounds like she was detoxing pretty hard. Then they had another mouse that was feeding on a vitamin A toxic mother, and the mouse was getting sick. The baby mouse was getting sick. They took the mouse away from the mother and put it on normal mouse chow. Even though it's like a newborn, they put it on normal mouse chow, and all the problems went away. Yes, you can hurt your babies with breast milk, but still I'm going to say breast is best because formula is garbage. Yeah, John was saying eat bugs, drink mouse milk. No, it's cockroach milk. They're going to milk cockroaches for you. Eat bugs, milk cockroaches. And if you haven't seen that, go look up cockroach milk. Oh, neonatal milk? Yeah, okay. It doesn't really matter as long as we know it's mouse nursing, whatever you want to call it. So it's funny when I'm like, dairy, you're suckling cow udders, you just have steps in between, and people are like, butter, and I'm like, no, really, you understand what you're doing? Like, why are you? And then if you're like, well, I would never eat dog milk, and you're just like, why? What if dog milk was more nutritious than cow milk? Why? I'm like, it's a really weird, like the whole dairy thing has all sorts of weird undertones to it that people will just completely avoid thinking about. It really is interesting. But no, John, go Google cockroach milk. It's serious. It's 4 times as nutritious as cow milk. I'm like, who's going to be down there with tweezers? Like, milking the cockroaches? Or are they just going to put them on a vacuum and just suck it all out of them? So, oh, Monica here. No. Let's look. Does that even exist? Cockroach milk was what Monica asked. Milk. Nutritious. I want you to see who's pushing this. Let me go share my screen. So, Healthline, cockroach milk, nutrition and benefits. Health.com, insect-based cockroach milk health benefits. Gosh, do you think there's a concerted effort to start convincing everybody that cockroach milk is good for them? NPR, cockroach milk. Yes, you read that right. MedicineNet.com, cockroach milk, nutrition and benefits. Wow, it's like all these articles are the same and they're just being reproduced on different websites. ScienceAsArt.org, unlocking the nutritional secrets of cockroach milk. Oh, let's go to PubMed now. Just because it's on PubMed doesn't mean it's good science, folks. Highlight report. I'm not advocating this at all. Okay, just to be clear. Diploptera functata, cockroach milk as the next superfood. If this is not telling you that the word superfood is used to sell you garbage, I don't know what else is. If you see the word superfood, run away. So, yes, cockroach milk is a thing. Okay. So let's go back to the original question. Are aldehydes inside bile? Let's just double check. I'm not sure if so think about it this way. Okay, so for your liver to one marker of vitamin A toxicity, as Mawson was alluding to in his papers, one marker of vitamin A toxicity is too many retinol esters in the blood. Okay. Too many retinol esters in the blood. How would retinol esters as a whole chunk together get in the blood? The liver is leaking them. Okay. The liver is leaking out retinol esters and retinoic acid, just like Anthony Mawson went over in his papers. And there is a specific, so no lab runs retinol esters as a test by itself. There's one lab that runs just one retinol ester, that's retinol palmitate. It's a pain in the ass to get because they're like a private lab, and it's just awful. So what they do is they look at the percent of retinol esters in your blood, the retinol esters in your blood as a percentage of retinol in your blood. So they can differentiate between the two. And if your retinol esters are above 5% of the total vitamin A in your blood, that is by itself a definition of vitamin A toxicity. Okay, too many retinol esters of retinols in your blood is a distinct marker of vitamin A toxicity. Multiple papers on this. At first they said it was 10% was the cutoff. Then they changed it to 7.5%. Then they changed it to 5%. Gosh, does that sound like they're slowly discovering that it's a toxin to you? They're saying the amount causing toxicity is getting lower. I see the pattern. So normally when your liver is chopping up vitamin A, retinol esters to put into your bile, it's going to chop it into the retinol, hopefully bind a retinol binding protein and attach that to it and cut it into the free fatty acid. I believe there's actually free fatty acid binding proteins too to protect you from those. So then the alcohol goes out into your system. It's in the bile, which means it can go anywhere the bile goes, which may be the bloodstream. All of your cells, pretty much, I could be wrong, there may be a couple of cells that don't, but nearly all of the cells in your body, will hedge it that way, have alcohol dehydrogenase and aldehyde dehydrogenase, because they all have to detox. So actually, you know what I should look up? Let's do this. Oh, should I get a drink of water? Actually, let me tell a funny story because my voice may be getting a little scratchy. When I have the, here's a tip. I was going to say this today. If you drink charcoal, if you are consuming charcoal, it will tend to dry you out. Getting too dry can absolutely aggravate constipation. So the very first thing, if you're taking any charcoal and you're still drinking the same amount of water that you were before, you need to drink more water. And if you feel more thirsty, then yes, you need more water when you drink charcoal. It doesn't seem like charcoal soaks up that much water by itself. Like it's not like soluble fiber where it's like swelling, but it seems to do that. So here, funny story, last week on the Inner Circle after the live stream, I was getting a really dry throat during the Inner Circle because I've been speaking for like 5.5 hours straight or whatever, 4.5 hours by that point. And I was talking about needing some water, and I guess my mom, who I helped take care of, she has Parkinson's-like syndrome. She heard me talking and came and knocked on the door, and I was doing the second live stream. And so I was like, I'm busy. And I came out afterwards, and I said, what did you need? What did you need me for? I was live. And she goes, I was bringing you a glass of water, and I felt so bad. I was like, dang it. My lovely mother was trying to take care of me, getting me a glass of water. And I didn't want to get up to go get it. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. And she has trouble speaking, so she couldn't tell me what she had. So it was just kind of silly. But that's my mom. Love her to death. So let's see. Malondialdehyde in bile. Malondialdehyde bile. And then another word that's always helpful is content. The mullet. They're going to give them bile. Sure. Largemouth bass. No, I'm not seeing any aldehyde stuff in bile. But the thing to think about it is once the bile is out in your system, everything the bile contains is then at the whim of the other detox enzymes out there, and there is ADH and ALDH potentially creating aldehydes in the bile. So if you were to dump a bunch of bile out into the system when we were talking about aldehydes, some of it will then go and be converted into aldehydes. So there could be aldehydes in the bile itself. It could be turning into aldehydes as it's out in the system. Okay. So here we have, so let me show this real quick. So do aldehydes go up? Yes. So lipid peroxidation, this is fatty acids getting oxidized, and liver damage in double and simple common bile duct ligation. They're giving these rats cholestasis, toxic bile leakage. They're tying off the common bile duct, the big bile duct. They're going to tie it off. What happens when you plug up a pipe that has too much pressure in it, or that keeps building pressure? It's going to blow out the back, right? You're going to blow holes in the bile ducts. They do this on purpose to see what happens with cholestasis, toxic bile leakage. So I pulled up this paper because I saw that it had aldehydes going up. Blood malondialdehyde levels, which is what PUFAs turn into in your system. Nobody talks about malondialdehyde. But everybody's like, don't eat PUFAs. What are they causing? Malondialdehyde to be created. So it was significantly higher in simple ligature animals. I don't know what simple means versus double. Compared to controls or double ligature. Okay. That doesn't make sense off the top. But then we go liver malondialdehyde levels. So backed up in the liver were significantly higher in animals subjected to double ligation. So the rats that got the double ligation had more malondialdehyde in the liver itself because the liver contains fat. Fatty acids oxidize. They create malondialdehyde. The simple ligature. So this is, think about it. Double ligation is backing stuff up more into the liver itself. Single ligature is there's more escaping into the blood. Seems pretty straightforward to me. Significance. The type of bile duct ligation influences the type and localization of lipid peroxidation. So does toxic bile leakage increase aldehydes? Yes. But we don't know whether it's in the bile itself or whether it's happening out in the system. It wouldn't change anything I'm doing. So, what else do we have? John Dickinson, liposuction as detox. John always has good questions. And let me answer John's other super chat real quick. Will selenium containing shampoo skew a hair test? Abso-freaking-lutely. Yes. When you think of Head and Shoulders like zinc in a shampoo or selenium, which is in Selsun Blue, those shampoos do actually tend to bind to the hair and they put like a mineral coating on your hair, and they will absolutely skew a hair test. It's not the end of the world, but it's much better if we don't have it. So yes, it will usually even once in 6 months before a hair test, we can see it. So yes, it will skew a hair test. Liposuction as detox. Well, I remember, I don't know if I could find this anymore, but there was a plastic surgeon quote once, and somebody sent it to me, and it said that this one plastic surgeon said that he can tell when women are eating healthy because their liposuction fat is orange. So I want you to think about that. These are women coming in for liposuction. So what does that mean they probably have an excess of? Probably body fat. And the ones who eat healthy, who are still coming in to get body fat removed, have orange fat. And when they do dialysis and they're using a machine to basically function as the kidneys, what color is the dialysis fluid that they take out? It's yellow. What color is vitamin A? Yellow. What color is bile? Yellow. These things are all obvious. In the young boy who had the highest copper levels I'd ever heard of in his blood, his what's it called? Plasmapheresis, which is similar. Plasmapheresis, where they're just taking out plasma, it was light blue, like copper. Like, we can see these things. It's like I posted on Twitter today, when people often get dry, cracked heels. What color are their heels? A lot of times, yellow. How have we fixed dry, cracked heels? A low vitamin A diet. What color is bile? What color is vitamin A? Yellow. This all makes sense. It's not that hard to look at, like seborrheic dermatitis. Seborrheic dermatitis, what color is it typically? It's yellow. You can go look it up. What color is fatty liver? It's yellow. Like, I don't understand why medicine can't be like, maybe the color means something. It doesn't seem that hard. But could liposuction be a detox? It's pretty invasive. My lamp is yellow. Well, okay, Joe, that's kind of silly. But yeah, I'm not going to be going out and suggesting people get liposuction as detox. No. But would it be removing a chunk, for lack of a better term? It would be removing a chunk, or is it a chunk of fat, which is full of fat-soluble toxins? Yes. So is that all of them, Joe? Did I get to all the questions? That's all. Okay. So thank you all very much for coming. Oh, wait. Joe says wait. Got to listen to Joe. Did he find anything? I did the selenium one. Oh, okay, Chris. I remember this question. Yes. Chris said, taking lots of potassium, how to balance the forms. Okay. What I started to realize, so the simple answer to your question is, I don't know. I have not figured this out yet. This is still in its infancy. But first of all, the types of potassium that people tend to tolerate the best and be able to take the highest doses of without getting potassium problems are from food. That is just the way it is. So if you ever want to experiment with a lot more potassium in a day, I tell people, like, if you want to go and really see if potassium deficiency is part of your problem and you do well on bananas, like, try having like 3 or 4 bananas in a day and see if your anxiety's better, or your fatigue's better, or your depression's better, or you can fall asleep faster, or whatever. Or if you get tired after a meal, have a banana with the meal and see if you don't get as tired. Like, so you can do the least likely type of potassium to cause issues if you want to take a lot at once is food-based, or like coconut water, or potatoes have their own inflammatory problem. White potatoes that are peeled well and cooked to death, like, they have their own inflammatory problem because they are nightshades, but it does bring in a lot of potassium. And I've had clients who are like, you know what? I feel amazing the night after and the morning after I eat a bunch of potatoes. And I'm like, it's potassium. That's easy. It was the potassium. There's nothing magical in potatoes other than potassium. So, the forms of potassium, the ones that are in the article that I talked about, potassium glycinate, there's potassium chloride, there's potassium gluconate, there's potassium citrate. Notice there was a second word on all of those. So chloride obviously is chloride. Citrate is citric acid. Gluconate is gluconic acid. And what was the other one I'm thinking of? Glycinate is glycine. Okay. The thing you must remember about any supplement you take is that the secondary group on there, citrate, gluconate, all that stuff, that has its own effect. That has its own effect. So if you take one type of supplement of potassium and you have an issue, it might not be the potassium. It might be the thing that's bound to the potassium, because your body, to use the potassium, has to break them apart. So now you have these two things floating around. Let me just do another thing. I got to explain this real quick. There's people out there like selling a magnesium supplement, and they're like, it has all 7 of the forms of magnesium your body uses and needs. No, your body uses magnesium by itself. It has to break off all that other crap to use it. One of the reasons magnesium chloride is so good for absorption, especially topically, is because the magnesium and the chloride very easily dissociate. So you then have the magnesium by itself and the chloride. When they stay stuck together, when they have like trouble dissociating, like let's say potassium iodide for the thyroid doesn't break apart very well. It's potassium iodide, but it may get stuck in the iodine receptors and cause problems, which is why if you saw my potassium iodide episode, you learned that potassium iodide ruins thyroids because it doesn't break apart. It gets stuck in the thyroid, in the iodine spot, and then over time you accumulate it and you get thyroid problems. Why do you think they give radioactive potassium iodide to burn thyroids to death? That's what they do, because it gets stuck there. So anyway, you want it to dissociate, but then that also means you have two things that can both have biological effects floating around your system. I started to come up with a theory that I talked about mostly in the inner circle at the start, which is that, well, sodium chloride contains sodium and chloride. People were using magnesium chloride, magnesium and chloride. A lot of people were using potassium chloride as part of the 50-50 salt, or some people were just supplementing it. Well, that's potassium and chloride. Do you see what may be happening? They might be getting a little more chloride than their body likes. Okay? Because some people, there are some people out there taking a lot of potassium chloride and doing a lot of, there's people out there covering themselves once or twice a day, head to toe, in magnesium lotion because they feel better. But that does contribute. You always have to think about the other part. Nobody ever talks about this. Again, I just don't understand why anybody doesn't talk about it. They're like, it's not just the mineral. There's the other things attached to it. So this is why you can't just take like potassium bicarbonate as a supplement, because you're taking the bicarbonate, which is like a drug level alkalizing agent. Doesn't mean it's bad, but it means it's very easy to way overdo it if you're trying to supplement your potassium with it. Does that make sense? So potassium citrate seems to be an easy way to potentially substitute out for the potassium chloride if you tolerate it. If somebody was feeling like maybe they were getting too much chloride, and somebody's going to say, well, what are the symptoms of too much chloride? And you can look up hyperchloremia, but it's just kind of something where we look at it and we go, well, you're doing salt, you're doing potassium chloride, you're doing magnesium chloride. You might be doing too many chlorides, so let's try a different potassium. That's it. So is there a science in this? Is there like a magical ratio? I am okay. Nothing against the question, Chris. But when people talk about like health gurus, they're like, you need this magic ratio of this to this, and it has to be this ratio. Those guys are full of it. What if somebody is more deficient in one of those things than the other? Do they need the same ratio as does this person need the same ratio as this person? Like if you're thinking of two different things that are out of balance? No. You need cod liver oil is supposed to have this ratio of vitamin A to vitamin D. Here's the funny thing. Whenever they talk about magic ratios in the health guru sphere, they're almost always talking about one toxin and one thing that is somewhat protective against it. You need this magical ratio of zinc to copper. Oh, do you? You need to take copper with your zinc? No, you don't. We fix people every day, not ever even thinking about copper supplements and reducing the copper in the diet. You need what's the next? Well, you need vitamin K if you're going to take vitamin D to prevent the D causing problems, because the rat poison vitamin D is a problem. So you have to take vitamin K to protect you against it. Do you see where I'm going with this? Whenever they talk about ratios, it's garbage. Oh, your cod liver oil has to have the magical ratio of vitamin A to vitamin D that we have somehow determined magically out of thin air, and all the other cod liver oils are bad. They're bad. They have bad ratios. Here's a funny thing you may not know about cod liver oil. When they try to purify cod liver oil to take out all the toxins known to be in it, they tend to remove the fat-soluble vitamins too. Isn't that a weird coincidence? Do you remember the coincidence about sweating out vitamin A and D and E in the saunas with the flush niacin? These are weird coincidences that when they get rid of toxins, they're getting rid of fat-soluble alcohols as well. So in terms of, do I tend to make pulled out of my rear end ratios or amounts or balances between gluconate and citrate and chloride and glycinate? Some people, let me give you two examples. It seems that some people who are really copper toxic, glycine can sometimes make them feel worse. So potassium glycinate may not be their choice. I have some people who are like, I took magnesium glycinate once and I just felt amazing. And I'm like, did you ever feel that way on other magnesiums? And they're like, no. And I'm like, it wasn't the magnesium, it's the glycine. And I'll say, okay, so you might want to try potassium glycinate because we already know you're getting along with magnesium glycinate. Why don't we try potassium glycinate? It's already working. Some people also seem to get their copper toxicity very stirred up by potassium citrate and not by other potassiums. Well, when you read the research about citrate or citric acid, it can play a role in copper detox. Anything that plays a role in detox can stir it up. How many of you out there took chelators and they just made you bonkers? They made you feel terrible. Anything that helps with detox can stir up toxicity problems because that's how you get rid of it. You got to dig it out, right? Just to do a morbid example, you dig up a dead body. Is it going to smell? Yeah, you're going to start smelling it everywhere. Like you just unleashed it. You understand? So, that's why you have water in your toilet, is to separate your house with clean water from the stink that's down in the sewer. The water blocks the scent. That's why we have water in our toilets, not only to carry everything away, but to block the smell. Block up your toilet, then your house smells. You see what I mean? But that's just flushing it. It doesn't always go down, right? So that's what I got. Joe, any more? So in terms of balancing forms, just watch for if you don't feel good on a type, or if like we talked about with chlorides, if you're doing a lot of chlorides, if you're doing potassium chloride and magnesium chloride and sodium chloride, which is just regular salt, and you're going, when I do a lot of this, maybe I don't feel great, then start thinking about maybe trying more of a different form. The biggest mistakes people make in potassium, and I go over this in the article, I say this over and over and over. People take one pill of potassium is 99 milligrams. Let me give you some ideas here. One pill of potassium, 99 milligrams. A banana is 500. Banana is typically 500 milligrams. Good coconut water is like 500 to 600 milligrams per cup, 8 ounces of liquid. Okay. So people will come and they'll say, well, Dr. Smith, I tried taking a pill of potassium and I just don't feel any different. I guess I don't need any extra potassium. And I'm like, you took a 99 milligram pill, right? And they're like, yeah. I'll say, do you know how much potassium's in a banana? And they go, no. And I say 500 milligrams. Usually they start chuckling. And I go, so you took basically the equivalent of a bite of a banana and you want it to change your life. Is that what you're saying? And they're like, I guess so. It's good to start slow. Like usually when people are going up in potassiums, I suggest they try to go up at about 100 milligrams a day. So they're going up slow so they can watch, because supplements, like I said, foods don't tend to cause issues so much. You just deal with the potassium in foods better, right? We're designed for food. We start trying supplements. Not only do you have the potassium now that you could potentially overdo, you can overdo anything, but you also have that secondary group on the potassium that has its own effects. So now you're dealing with stuff. So you better go up slow if you're doing potassium supplements. And the nice thing about that micro ingredients potassium citrate, it comes with a scoop that they say on the label is it gives you 99 milligrams per scoop. It's a little teeny scoop. It's about like that big in diameter, the little scoop. So you could just go up by a scoop a day and see how you feel. Now, when I say a scoop a day, I mean over the total of the day. Total scoops in a day, you could go up by 1 scoop a day if you're doing up slowly. Now, the Institute of Medicine says the RDA of potassium is 4,700, or the suggested dose of potassium in a day is 4,700 milligrams. Total from everything. Total from everything. Not just supplements, not just foods, total from everything. I generally have people stop their supplement potassium at about 1,600. So they can make sure that they're not going crazy, because once I had a guy come to me and he's like, Doc, having some heart stuff from the potassium, I think. I said, okay. Potassium usually helps with heart stuff. How much are you taking? Well, I'm doing 5,000 milligrams a day of potassium supplements, like you said. And then there's like the record scratch, right? I'm like, did you say 5,000 of supplements a day? He's like, yes. I said, okay, hold up. I know where the problem is. Go and read the articles again, because it says 1,600 milligrams from supplements a day, 4,700 to 5,000 of total potassium from all sources in a day. So you can imagine if he's doing 5,000 of supplements, was he getting another gram, 2 gram, 3 grams, 4 grams from foods? Yes, you can overdo potassium. Yes, of course. Why not? You can overdo anything. Electrolytes affect the electrical charges. So if you get too much of any one of them or too little, you start getting electrical problems, like with your heart. The famous saying, I'm going to bring it out again, this is not a game. If you treat it like a game, you might lose. You may play too aggressive a move and cause yourself a problem. So don't. Spirit says, what about 3,000 milligrams from a supplement, potassium supplement, if you don't get much from food that day? I'm not, okay, this is something, I'm not just going to say that that's okay. I just don't do that. If somebody comes to me and they're like, I'm doing this, I'm already doing this amount, and they're like, and it works pretty well, I've had no issues, then I'm like, okay. But I'm not going to sit here on YouTube and tell people to take grams and grams and grams of supplemental potassium. Some people do really well on, like, I've seen people get amazing symptom relief from 1 pill of potassium gluconate a day. Do I know how that works? No, I have no idea how that works. Maybe they needed the gluconic acid. I don't know. So some people do well with just a small increase. And sometimes supplements can be amazing. And I tell people, oh, that's the other thing. So people are like, they're baby stepping into the potassium. They're so much baby stepping that they never get to a decent amount. They never get any results. And the other thing is, like we just talked about, those different things on the potassiums can cause different effects. Some people may feel amazing on one type of potassium and feel terrible on another. How do you get to figure this out? You got to try the different types. There is no magical ratio. There is no one size fits all. This is why we're here teaching people how to watch these things for themselves. So, so one comment was Soil Food Web Warrior says, my dad has seizures and dementia and his tongue is yellow. There will be signs. These things are not like, what color do people's teeth turn? Yellow. What color is seborrheic dermatitis? Yellow. What color is fatty liver? Yellow. Like, are we not jaundice? What color is your skin? Yellow. Eyes turn yellow. What color is earwax? Yellow. When you're really sick, what color is your snot? It can be all sorts of colors, but funny, some of the colors are like bile colors, like green and yellow. Weird. So, what color are cracked, dry heels? Yellow. This shouldn't be that hard. Like, right? Doesn't it all seem so, it seems terribly obvious when I say it. It may seem terribly obvious when you guys hear it, but nobody else is putting this together. I don't know why. I mean, they're just going to be like, well, it's just yellow. Do people actually think that? Well, it's just yellow. I wonder what's in there. Does anybody do that? I wonder what is in this diseased tissue that's making it yellow. So, Pierre says he was confirming it. When I manage to have too much potassium, my heart acts like it's going haywire. I love potassium. And can you take too much? Yes. I love zinc. Can you take too much? Yes. Are deficiencies of these things everywhere? Yes. So how are you going to figure out how much you need? Are you going to listen to some internet health guru be like, everybody should take 50 milligrams of zinc picolinate a day? And let's say you tried doing that and you could not even keep your eyes open at all that day. You had to go sleep the rest of the day. Is that going to be functional for you? No. Is that probably going to go away anytime soon? No. So, oh yeah, Joe was commenting, after 1 year of reduced vitamin A intake, I did 10 hours of raking leaves at the beach with bare hands on a wooden handle. My hands are soft, no calluses. That is true. Like, my old lifting calluses do not get as bad these days. And then what color do calluses turn, folks? They tend to turn yellow. Okay, Adam's saying, I don't get it. Bananas are yellow. We don't eat the yellow part. That's a key distinction. We don't eat the yellow part. Bananas are basically white to off-white. We don't eat yellow things. It doesn't mean all yellow, so like the banana is a great example. Hope was saying she got major leg weakness when she took zinc in the beginning. Now, Hope is very sensitive and pays attention very, very well. This is the same Hope that I'm talking about who's going to be a practitioner. She has been through a lot of it, and she has watched her symptoms. And she can give people all sorts of feedback of like, yeah, she had that issue too, because she's had both like the deficiency symptoms and the excess symptoms. So she's super helpful to have around, because she's experienced. I haven't experienced everything. Like, just as an example, like when women correlate certain toxicities or deficiencies or bile dumping to their female, sexual organ symptoms, I can't relate. I just have to listen to the patterns. Adam says, oh, it's white. Gotcha. I'm eating 2 right now. Good job. I had my 2 bananas this morning for breakfast too. So yeah, 2 bananas is a great way to start my day. So I'm going to get going. Yeah, I think we're all done. So hope you all enjoyed that. Don't forget, all the links are down below. If you want to find us, our store and all that stuff. And if you want to find me on Twitter, that's where I'm the most active. And hope you all have a great week. Go check out Mawson's papers if you want. Send them to people who, if you're trying to convince them to do it, be like, here's this Mawson paper on lupus. Think about, let me actually, before I end, lupus flares. When lupus gets really bad, what do you think that is? Why would the lupus all of a sudden have all the symptoms come up? You guys who are here regularly know it's a bile dump. They just dumped a massive amount of toxic bile into their system, and it caused all of their symptoms, and it worsened all of their symptoms. This is so easy once you understand. And then Anthony Mawson, the whole paper on some systemic lupus erythematosus. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to go do the inner circle. Hope you all enjoyed it. Have a great week. Bye now.